right, we're gonna get started, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We have a bit of an agenda to get through today, but we do want to say welcome to MECA. We're gonna do a little get to know you here in a minute, but I'll have Marissa tell you what we're all about.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marissa Tucholsky. I also help, I work at the Office of University Events and Protocol, and I work for a University Ceremonies office. And part of my role is I help manage the MECA Slack channel and also put these together and get everybody together. So on the next slide, thank you, Tiffany. So our agenda for today, we're going to go through a quick welcome to MECA. We're going to have Office of Government and Community Engagement present Sustainable Event Planner training. ASU Catering and Food Guidelines are going to be here as well, and then talk about any upcoming MECA events. So I always get this question, what is MECA?
Put your microphone closer to your mouth.
Okay. I swear. Okay, next slide. Okay, MECA serves as the official professional staff and faculty organization that communicates necessary event resources and knowledge and facilitates opportunities to assist self-identified event professionals at Arizona State University. So whether by duties assigned or other duties as assigned, people at the university, some people have to do events. And so this is really organization so that people who are more seasoned and actually have the title of event manager or event coordinator can assist those assistants who, hey, I need you to plan that lunch for 50 people tomorrow and I need food and chairs and tables and stuff. So it's really just a resource for anybody who has anything to do with an event at the university. And proud to say that we have over 500 members as part of MECA. So just to tell you how many people do something in regards to an event, it's over 500 people at the university. Melissa, am I missing anything?
No, just I think it's important to know that meeting event coordinators and assistants came into being as an official organization. I thought I saw Christine Olaf. Did she walk in? No. Probably. Yeah, maybe. We prior to being an official university organization, we were just kind of a loosey-goose collective of people get together and for once in a while and talk about events. But what we discovered is there's so many people, again, as Marissa said, either by title or responsibility doing activities or events on campus. And so some people may be doing a one-off dinner in the spring, somebody's doing an annual lecture event, or you've got people who are producing large-scale events like we are in the ceremonies office. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, I'm Melissa Werner. I'm the executive director in the Office of Events and Protocol and the Office of University Ceremonies. So, and I know a lot of you, but I know we have a lot of new faces. So we're going to get to know each other right now. So that's our, so let's do the next slide, Derek. So what we're going to do is, this was Marissa's idea. So you're going to raise your pitchforks, F. So we want to find out who's new. So who has been working at Arizona State University for a year or less? So quite a few of you.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
A year to, let's say 10 years. Okay. 10 to 15 years. 15 to 20. Few of you, right? 25 to 30. Debbie. 20, yeah. Okay. This is when I feel like the oldest person in the room. I've been at the university 33 years. And thank you. I don't know if that is a commitment or testament to just stubbornness or an inability to go anywhere else. I don't know. But I also actually went to ASU and I grew up just maybe 3 miles down the road from campus. So this is truly my home. ASU has always been my home. So for all of you new people, let's see your hands one more time. All the new people, you found your people, right? We're here to help you. There's a lot of experience in this room in a lot of different areas, doing a lot of different types of events. And so that's why we want to utilize us as a resource. If you're not on the MECA Slack channel yet, please do register yourself. We put out all kinds of questions all the time, lots of different things. Some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, we get questions about on the Slack channel, lots of other things that maybe you don't know about. A question came across Slack the other day about Pro-M having a contract with the university. So immediately responded, yes, they definitely have a contract, even though they weren't on that vendor list. That's the kind of stuff that comes up that sometimes people aren't aware of. So that's why this particular organization is so good to be a part of. So thank you for being here and spending the day with us. I do want to say Another thank you to Sodexo. They provided lunch today for us, gratis, so we thank them. Don came through and I asked if he was going to present it all, and he said, no, they did the lunch for us today, and we really do want to appreciate the fact that they did this for us and they didn't charge us. This is their gift to this particular group. So if it's your first time being in the stadium or you haven't dealt with Sodexo before, if you could find the team and just tell them thank you. They've done a great job and we really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about it later, but Sodexo is the preferred vendor in the stadium. So if you do anything in the stadium, if you do anything in the arena, if you do anything in the Arboretum, where else do they do? If you do anything there, the preferred vendor is Sodexo. So that's where the Sodexo comes in. I'm sure that's going to come up later while we're talking about the new food guidelines. So a great example of the contracted vendor in the space. So next slide. So a question I get, so if you email MECA at asu.edu, I also monitor that. So I get all your questions if you guys ever want to know. And so one of the things I constantly get asked is, do we have an event checklist? Let's be honest, an event can change very drastically in what needs to be done. So if it's a dinner at the dean's house or if it's a student program, two different varied scenarios that you need to be worried about. My solution to this is going to say, fill out the special events registry form. So it serves as a checklist. When in doubt, fill it out. It's a way to communicate with all of our safety partners on campus. So it's a way to pretty much submit all your information, ask you your venue, the date, ask if you need police, it asks if you need any kind of political officials are going to be there, if the president's going to be there. And it just allows everybody to see what's going on at the campus all at once. Last year alone that was submitted, I believe it was over 12,000 events on that form. So again, if you're questioning if it needs to be submitted, just go ahead and do it. Worst comes to worst, nothing happens. The rule is that it should be submitted 30 days prior to the event. Even if you're within that 30 days, still fill it out. I am guilty of filling it out like 10 days before my event. But at least it lets police know, it lets fire know, it lets everybody know on campus, like, hey, I'm doing this, photos on the lawn and it's in 10 days. And they're like, okay, cool. We at least know we should see an increased amount of students at Old Main during after hours because of this. So I would definitely say check out the special events registry. And then, like I said, when in doubt, fill it out.
So it's not an event approval, because that's the other question we get.
yeah.
There's nobody actually looking at it saying, yes, you may have your event. Your event is your event. Really, more than anything, it's to let those safety collaborators know. So if you say, I'm doing an event on the lawn, wherever, one of the campuses, and we're going to have candles and open flame or whatever, fire marshal needs to know that. They just need to know that your tent is secure, that it's got the extinguishers and stuff. Nobody's there to say, no, you can't do that event. Now, what I will say is if you need somebody to say no to your event, there's a way to do that. And I've utilized the safety collaborators in that way. So cone of silence, I know it's being recorded, but sometimes you have to get somebody else to say no to you for something, and your safety collaborators are a good way to do that. So if you have something that's just like, I just don't think this is a good idea, or I think it's not safe, we have a conversation with the fire marshal, have a conversation with our police liaison, Santa Cruz, and they'll talk you through it and let you know about those things. So utilize that.
And even if you think you don't need PD, but you want PD to be aware of it, I was told by Nick Santa Cruz to at least click the box, and he can at least get the email that says, hey, your event's going on. You might not need police presence, but it will let them know that this event's happening on campus, and maybe I'll just do a drive-by in the squad car to make sure everything's fine. It's just, again, one of those things to just think about of like, I don't need police, but if they stop by just to say hi, that's also not a bad look for my event. Reminders for today, the slides and the recording will be shared by the end of the week. In-person attendees, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone to be brought to you. That's for our folks online on Zoom. And for those on Zoom, please use the chat function, and I will be monitoring chat for any questions that you may be asking. I feel like we went through that really quickly.
We did go through it fast, but that's okay. I think one of the reminders that's not on there that we do want to say is that at the end of this afternoon's event, the Omni, the brand new Omni at the corner of Mill and University, is hosting this group for appetizers and drinks.
Yes.
And so if you've RSVP'd, if you've told us that you're coming, and I'm going to put on my protocol after that, if you've told us you're coming, you need to show up. because they're putting out food and drink for us. And so we've had this in the past where people said, yeah, I'm coming. And they get to the end of the day. I'm like, I get home like 40 minutes early. I think I'm going to just leave. Please, if you've told us that you're going to be attending that event, we really do need to show up because Omni is trying their very best to be a really good partner to us. And they were very generous, just like our friends at Sodexo, at hosting the food and beverage for this afternoon. So please stop by, say hello, talk to them, get a business card. I don't know if they're doing tours, are they? They might be.
They
If you
might
ask.
be, if you ask.
I hadn't gone over there until a couple weeks ago, and they have some amazing spaces over there. So if you are looking for something that's close to campus but not on campus, it's a really nice venue. So
And
take a
even
look.
if you did not register, I got a couple of emails with like, I can go now. Please still go. Please
Yeah,
still
please show
attend.
up.
Please check it out. Especially now that you know if you RSVP, please attend. So we'll just
I think we just gave like half an hour for people to get in their cars or walk over or whatever. So right there at the southeast corner of University and Mill. So,
yeah. So they are actually offering complimentary $10 valet, which is a discount from what they usually charge. So if you want to move your car and head over there, that's why
there.
we did that time frame.
so you can just leave from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Any questions about the day and what we're going to cover, or
In
if the
general.
food's still out, feel free to get another piece of cheesecake. It's real good.
I ran through that a lot faster than I
We
thought
were
I was
just
going
super,
to.
well, that's all right. That's going to leave time for us to have questions, and there'll be a lot of discussion. And so again, if there's questions or something that you want to know, raise your hand and we'll write a microphone to you so we can so our folks online can also hear the questions. And then for folks that are online, raise your hand and we'll get to your questions as well. Okay.
Okay. And then
So.
next person is Shauna Moore.
All right. So we're come on up, Shauna. So we're really happy to have Shauna Moore with the Office of Government. It probably has a more distinguished title than government relations, doesn't it? Yeah. So she'll tell us what that is, but she's here to talk to us about bringing guests to campus, specifically our elected officials. Always very important to know the ins and outs. So thank you, Shauna.
And the one thing about that is that if you click on the special event registry form that you are bringing somebody or you're inviting somebody as an elected official, she's the one who actually gets the request and reviews it. So she's the one who reaches out and is like, oh, you're going to invite this person. You should probably also include this person. So without further ado, Shauna.
Thank you. I'm Shauna Moore, as they politely introduced me as. I've been working with this department. Its name has changed for 17 years. Focusing mostly on state relations. Our office title now is Government and Community Engagement. We're the primary entity that works with all the elected officials, federal, state, tribal, as well as our cities and counties, and all the cultural groups in Arizona. We also have a Mexico relations department. I wanted to show you our leadership just so you know who they are. You can always reach out to them. Our VP is Adam DeGuire. That's my boss. He's the vice president. Matthew Simon, also my boss, is the VP of federal and state relations. So if you're inviting any legislators, congressional members, their staff, Matt and Adam are the ones to reach out to about that. And it's not that we're going to tell you no, but it might be, hey, you didn't think of this person, or we need to have presence, and I'll get to the reporting later. Kristen Irwin is the Associate Vice President for Community Municipal Relationships. She leads a team that works with all the cities and Maricopa County. I have Jacob Moore still on here. If you noticed, he's actually not part of our team anymore. He is the VP and special advisor to the president, but his department area in our department is empty. So if you want any tribal relations right now, Jacob is still the best person to reach out with. He has relationships with all 22 tribes in Arizona. Kenja Hassan works with our cultural relations, and she has great connections. I'm sure some of you have worked with her. And Paula Hidalgo does Mexico relations for us. So she works well with the consulate's office, as well as governors and elected officials in Mexico. Our federal relations team is broken down to the executive director of federal relations is Whitney Riggs. She works in DC. So she's on the Hill, has great relationships there. If you have an event going there, she's the best person to contact. and can give you information. For state, it's Kendra Burton. She's the executive director that works mostly with our legislature here in Phoenix. Municipal and county community relationships has offices on all campus. Downtown is Ruben Alonso. He works with Phoenix. Polytechnic is Ward Nichols and Susan Stevenson. Tempe is Timothy Gomez. Tucson is John Winchester, and West is Bobby and Jen. So they have great relationships with all the chambers and elected officials in those areas. So if you're looking for any invitations to go to those groups, they're great resources for you. One back. So our major point is help us help you. So we're the primary contact, and we get a lot of phone calls. Just recently, I had one from a legislator looking for an event at ASU, and we didn't know anything about this event. And after we were able to get a hold of who had the event, it was already past the event. So we weren't even able to help the legislator get there. Luckily, he was able to find another contact, but it's a great reason why to let us help you. They reach out to us and they expect us to know because they think ASU is about as many people in this room. And we are big, and I don't often know. And if you submit a form, I do reach out sometimes and say, hey, what campus are you focusing on? Where's this event? It's not just so in case we get questions, our team knows and can answer and even direct them to the person you want them to contact. So if it's not the event coordinator, if you want them to reach out to somebody else, it really helps to give us that name. I'm going to get back to this, but the second reason we need you to help us is we have reporting guidelines that are obligated to us as ASU is a lobbying body. How we can help you. We can put you into contact with all the people you want to talk to. You might think, oh, I just want to reach out to this legislator, but it might actually be there's a better person that could be your speaker, could be at your event. Say it's with nursing, we can get you in contact with the whole committee on nursing, alumni, nurses who are at the legislature. We can get you in contact with all those officials, even the governor's office and even staff, which are often overlooked, but sometimes the best people to have at your events. We can answer questions about your events, so we're not annoying. They're not trying to bug you day of and get them to where they're supposed to be without trying to get a hold of you. And we can assist with follow-up. If you're like, Shauna, we haven't heard from anybody, can you follow up? We will definitely follow up with the legislature or cities or towns, any of those officials, and get back to you. They don't always get the Eventry emails. It's just the name of the game. It gets locked up in their security profiles. But since we have communications with them often, we're often approved senders. So please reach out to us. We would love to make sure they got the notice for your event. Reporting guidelines. This is not the fun time. We are a lobbying entity on the federal and state level. Cities right now, some of them are starting to put lobbying restrictions in. We are currently exempt, but those can always change due to the fact that we're a public body, but it's kind of questionable whether they'll count it or not. For ASU, we have to follow the rules. So the rules include gifts, meals, speaking engagements. If you're giving them awards, there's certain things. How many people you invite, who you invite is all into the reporting. Some of you might be on my state relations lobbying report that goes out quarterly. And I just email it to you saying, hey, did you have any legislators, staff, their families, because it's not just them, that I can report on and make sure our report is accurate. So we're giving the best information to our knowledge to the Secretary of State's office in our lobbying reports. We also do it federally, different guidelines. I don't do that report. I don't want to know, but we have somebody that will reach out to you and check with you and make sure there's nothing that goes beyond that. The gift limit in Arizona right now is $5 a year. So it's a big deal. Most of the time, they can't have anything. Most of the time, it's already done for the year. So we really ask, like, what are you handing out? Is your event open to the public? If it's open to the public, I talk with Kim DeMarchi, who's in general counsel, and she lets me know if that's considered a gift or just something that's available. So it is really important if you have an event that you check with us on those guidelines. For meals, there's different levels at the state. If it's under $20, we just report an aggregate number. If it's over $20, it has to be individually listed. So I need to know who's coming, if their spouse came, if their friends came, if their kid came, everything. So, and that includes staff. So that it takes a lot of reporting on your guys' end, takes a lot of reporting on my end. So if you are not on my state relations quarterly report email, please let me know so I can get you on there, just so we can have equal information for our legislature. And that's about it. Like, I know I'm not taking the full half hour either. Sorry, guys. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I can try to answer them. Like I said, it'll probably be individual to your event some of the times. Dramatic pause.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, I'm Lex. I'm with the Edson College of Nursing and Health Innovation. So going along with that, would your office be able to assist with like focusing on any like public representative who has career ties, like to nursing, for example? So if I say like, I would like a contact list of anyone who has been a career nurse at some point in their career, or what have you. Is that something that your office can assist with for invitations?
So some of the times, like for elected officials, I worked with Edison before on elected officials. We actually have currently 3 nurses that are current legislators who were career nurses who are also alumni. So they're a great example of how we can get you that contact information. Just a reminder, state elected officials are every 2 years. So your list will not be accurate the whole time. And like this year, we had a lot of resignations. So if I give you a list, you might want to check with me before you go forward. But we have bios and the alumni status for all of those all of the elected officials. So if you're looking for that, we do have it.
Hi, thank you. Could you say a little bit about best practices or rules around inviting speakers during campaign season, like if they're up for reelection, or what are the do's and don'ts of that? Because I think that comes up a lot for us.
Yeah, there are definitely rules when it comes to political season, because we cannot use ASU devices in that. So it's always best to check with us. And we always have general counsel look into it too. The attorney we have is Kim DeMarchi, who looks into that for us, just to make sure we're abiding by all the rules. It is different for student groups, but for ASU departments and colleges, it's always the best practice to check with us. Sorry, I don't have it has to be specific. So even signs, all that stuff is there's rules on all of that. And usually Morgan's or Dr. Olson's office sends a notice out that gives you some ideas for basics.
Can you talk a little bit, Shauna, about the kind of odd pairing of electeds who are also faculty members?
We do have a few of those. ASU does report black and white, though. We don't use gray areas, so we would still report on them. I'll use Mr. Bowie as an example. He was a former state senator. Now he works for ASU, I believe, but we've had a couple that do that. So we report on them as they were just their elected officials, even though it's both. And they do have different rules as well, but they are staff too. So if you have specific question, I've always been told we just continue to report on, then we can always say, oh, they were staff too. It's easier to do it that way than to forget about them. But I don't know if there's currently, other than Sarah Cinema, any staff on right now.
Other questions? How many of it have had events where electeds have been part of it?
Maybe I
So-
don't want to know.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the most recent example was like West Valley Forward. There were a lot of electeds involved in that, and Kristen Irwin and team got involved in that
Yeah,
particular
and
event.
I mean, it's great to have, like, we're a great tool. We're never gonna be like, no, don't do that. But we might say, hey, this isn't the best audience. You actually should more turn this way. And this could be a better source for the information you're looking for. So it's always a good idea, like, because there are certain committees, there's certain partnerships that we know of that would be more conducive to certain areas. I'll take nursing, for example, because it's just great. But we were able to reach out to them and provide for them the list of everybody on that committee, the staff for that committee, the governor's staff for that committee, and get that to them. Help with the invitation so they could send one, and we sent one on behalf of Edison College of Nursing. So we're not sending it like, hey, government affairs is inviting. It's still you guys. We're just making sure they see it. And then I followed up. They followed up, and I don't know how many they had turn out because it was during session. During session, they might RSVP and then might not be able to come, and that's the name of the game because session goes long some days. But yeah, it's the best. I mean, I've worked here for so long. It is the best way I've seen to get more people at your event.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Day of the Capitol? Question. All right, go ahead.
We have a new director at our office. She started June 1st and she was a previous cabinet. She worked under Governor Ducey. And so she was a previous director of a state agency. She has a million contacts.
Yeah.
They're personal friends. She goes to lunch. So that's really tough because our office, like if I will definitely contact you if you're going to have anybody there at our events, but with her being, she goes to a lot of legislative things and herself, and then she has personal relationships. So how do we manage, like, if we're just going to have them come to our events is when we need to get a hold of you?
I would let us know when you get a hold of it. It's always what I would say the best practices for your director to talk to Matt Simon or Kendra Burton, just to give them a heads up. If she is talking about this program, school during those meetings, and that becomes a focus, some of those do have to be reported, even if they're personal, even though she's not the lobbyist. She works for an institution that has reporting obligations.
Okay, so she needs to get a relationship with them too. To
Yeah,
kinda just talk
and they
about
might already know each other just because of
it. I'm sure, yeah.
previous things, but it's just always a great way. I mean, Adam's been here. He worked at the legislature before he was our VP. Matt worked at the legislature before he was with our office. And then Kendra as well. So they might already know each other. It's just always best practice to just have a quick conversation, and then we know what's happening. And I would make sure, if you can, if that you're on my report.
Okay,
Please.
Got a question here, and then we'll go to Lisa, if that's all right. Hold on, Lisa. I got a question here first.
So I have a quick question. I think I kind of already gathered the answer from you, but we have a large event in November and we are inviting former Vice President Quayle. Do I need to reach out to those two gentlemen as well? Is that what
I would just give us a heads up.
Okay.
Because you never know if one of our people will be like, I heard about an
Right.
event at ASU with former President Dan Quayle. What's the information? Even if you don't invite them and pay for them, but just that we can give them the information is always perfect.
I think if somebody at that statue might want to let the president's office know too. Oh, perfect. Okay. Lisa.
Hi, Shauna.
Hello, Lisa.
Shauna used to be my cube neighbor. So my question is, how do you want us to handle federal or state offices who want us to sponsor them having events on campus, like wanting venues?
That should definitely go through Matt and Adam before, not saying that we can or can't, and for student groups, totally different too. It just gives us a heads up and also allows us to, more information is always better. And it helps provide answers to questions along the way. Because either that or we look really like crazy when we're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Let me Google that for you.
Other questions? I had asked Shauna if she would talk a little bit about ASU Day at the Capitol, because that is an event that's invited and specifically geared toward legislators, but there's a purpose behind that.
Well, yeah. So ASU Day at the Capitol has been going on before I think Melissa was even here.
Probably, I'm sure.
I think it was 36 years last year and we skipped a couple.
Yeah.
So ASU Day at the Capitol is held down at Wesley Bolin Plaza. And it's kind of like open door for the legislature.
But with
Kinda.
a focus.
With the focus on showing our government leaders what we're doing. So we do have this event every year. We're just getting back to getting a bigger presence. But it's inviting all legislators, almost all the state offices at this point get an invite. It's outside, hopefully in cooler months. Last year was a little bit
this last
warm.
Spring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was April. It was a little warm. But we had ice cream. So we have started since Melissa and Tanya Gray, when she was with us at the time, we highlight alumni owned businesses as our caterers. So it's kind of like food truck style, and have that open. But some of your schools might have already participated in this in the past. Some of you were like, I don't know what this event is. Our office does it in joint with alumni. And we would love to have more people there but we also have a limited space. So we will be starting that soon.
Right. And the focus this last 2 years has been the new economy.
New economy.
So there is so the reason I bring it up is that sometimes we've been, at least when I was helping do it, we were approached by people who were like, I want a table from recruitment. No, this is not. the
Yeah,
event
it's
for that.
more of a,
It's showing the legislators, these are the things that are happening on campus, the research centers, the different type of academic programs that are
engineering. Edison's
engineering, it's
been
very
there.
engineering focused, but
Mhm.
I mean, these are the people who help give us some money. And so we're trying to make sure they know what we're doing. U of A does it. NAU does it, I think, too. Right? I know U of A does it. I don't
U of
know.
A just started though.
Yeah, that's true.
They were
Yeah.
following us. So, but yeah, I think NAU does a joint one with somebody else.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, it's a great event. Even if your college isn't participating, there is a way to sign up if you, as the event coordinator, want to go see, hey, what's this all about? Do we want to see if we can get a place at the table next year? But it's a great way to build relationships. We have Sparky down there usually. If we have the territorial cup, it's usually down there. But yeah, photos, it's just a great mingling time. Even some of your directors might be like, hey, this would be a great time for me to go down and just mingle with the group. It usually is like an hour and a half.
Something like that. Yeah, with lunch and everything, a couple hours.
Yeah, so it's a great event. If you have any questions about that, you feel free to reach out to the GCE email, which is easy. It's gce@asu.edu, or my email is Shauna Moore, and I can definitely make sure you have that information. I don't know if I'll be helping head it up, but I will for sure make sure you get to the right person to make all those decisions. So
Other questions for Shauna? Thank you, Shauna. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
thank you.
What's that? Oh, belated happy birthday. Who's up next? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah. Hello. How many do you want? Two. Are we?
All right. Sure, get on the stage. Hi, everyone. My name is Paige Strickland, and I'm a program coordinator with University Sustainability Practices.
I'm Krista O'Brien. I'm a program manager with University Sustainability Practices.
And USP, University Sustainability Practices, for those of you that don't know, is ASU's operational sustainability department here on campus. So not connected to academics, more on the operational side of things here at ASU. And this is one of the trainings we give to a lot of our event planners. Some of you maybe have already been trained on this, which is great. But our sustainable event planner training, just teaching you the best practices to incorporate in all of your event planning. So we're gonna fly through this. It's a lot of information. Oh, I have a sign-in sheet. Yeah, we have time, which is great. But yeah, we have time. This is also available on Career Edge. Since you all are here and getting the training, I will pass around a sign-in sheet after. I actually have it here and I should pass it around. But and you sign that in, it will give you Career Edge credit online for this training. So yeah, it'll be a lot of information. We'll try to save some questions for the end, but we do have time in between. So I think we're good. All right, so our agenda for today, we will just kind of set a baseline of what is sustainability, what does that mean in the context of ASU, and how do your events contribute to that goal overall. We will talk about the different components, kind of the main overarching goals of a sustainable event. So having a representative, the promotion of your event, event supplies and catering for your event, and then waste reduction practices.
All right, so what is sustainability? Next slide. So here at USPN with ASU, we really look at all three tiers of sustainability. So environmental, social, and economic. We look at how can we best serve the present while also preserving the future. So what practices are we doing at a daily operational level at ASU that we can make sure we're preserving for the future. And events are a huge component of that. We know we do tons of events each year. I think somebody said just earlier, 12,000 events went through the event system. So we want to make sure we have sustainable practices for our events. And why do we pursue sustainability at ASU? It's really part of our charter. So not only do we do it operationally, we also have an academic component. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Global Futures Laboratory. We make sure we are a living laboratory at ASU for sustainability and a living example. We want to make sure we are graduating resilient global citizens and that we are providing a better future for the next generation. All right, so leadership. So ASU ranks in sustainability. We're definitely a top performer. I'm sure a lot of you have seen our rankings, and there's a few that you can actually put in your signature for ASU. So we are the first of School of Sustainability in the nation. It opened back in 2008. We are a platinum university through ASU Stars, so the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, sustainability tracking and rating system. We just recently became #1 ranked in the US. And then we're also #1 in the US for Times Higher Education. Times criteria actually looks at the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It has a lot of questions that are research-based, what our practices are on campus operationally. And we are just competing against other universities all around the world. All right, so we have our 7 goals here on the board. I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. We have our circular resource system that is mainly handled by ASU Zero Waste, which is a component of facilities, definitely a huge ASU event component as well. We have our climate positivity, collaborative action, food reconnection. We'll be talking a lot about food today too, and what you can do in your events to make sure we're serving sustainable food. Optimizing water, personal action, and climate resilience.
We'll jump right into our first component, which is having a sustainability representative. So someone that's really dedicated to infusing sustainability into all of your events can serve as that point of contact for fielding any questions, providing resources for others that also want to infuse sustainability into events. So this person will be familiar with our goals, familiar with zero waste goals, maybe have taken the sustainable lifestyle recognition, which is also offered through our office too. So just following those practices themselves, and then also being able to teach others in your office about those goals too. We have our Seeds of Sustainability training. I know that is a required training for all staff, so you all are familiar with that and have that. Great. So you're already on your way to planning events sustainably. Right, what's the next one? Let's move along. Yep, so just familiar with kind of our goals and then the zero waste guidelines as well. Okay, so promotion of your event, kind of the first step of infusing sustainability. So marketing and attendee awareness about the goals of your event. So it's really important to first identify what the sustainability goals are of your event. So if you're serving food, how are you going to deal with the waste of that event? Is it a zero waste event? Do you want people to bring their own utensils and water bottles, things like that? So just identify what those goals are so that you can effectively communicate those to your audience as well. And that increases the probability that your audience will engage with those goals and help you meet those. So very simple to just add in all of your communications about your event. This is a zero waste event. Please do X, Y, and Z to contribute to that. And we have some examples of that in this little mock-up on the side of the screen there. So bring, carpool, take public transportation, bring your own cup, things like that. Properly sorting waste as well. All right. Electronic distribution, so really avoiding paper use where it's not necessary, using all of your online resources. You have digital resources available to you, so exhaust all of those resources before you think about using paper to distribute and advertise for your event. So newsletters, emails, Slack is fantastic. Just all of those different communities you have available to you digitally. Advertise there first. If you do need to use paper advertisements, just make sure those are limited and strategic. So you are just printing just enough for what you think you need, and you're using FSC certified paper. So that's Forest Stewardship Council certified paper. Luckily, if you're using ASU Print Anywhere services on campus, that is already FSC certified paper, so you don't have to worry about that. But again, digital promotion whenever possible. Okay, alternative transportation. So when attendees are trying to get to your event, it's important to put in your communications that you would like them to use alternative transportation resources available to them wherever your event may be taking place. So research what those are and provide them with some instructions on how to get there and how to use those. For instance, the streetcar or the Orbit buses are a great example. So there's some great resources here that you can send out to your attendees. The probability that they will actually do that is greater when you give them those resources. So yeah, try to carpool if you're going to the same event as someone in your office. Yeah. Okay. Event supplies and materials. You can ask your vendors some questions. Since you're working with them, you kind of have a right to know what their practices are with getting you event supplies. So are those materials reusable, recyclable, compostable by ASU standards? And we'll talk about what those standards are in a little bit. Does the business you're thinking about working with utilize environmentally and socially friendly practices in their business? And there are a list here of some great ones: Fair Trade, Forest Stewardship Council certified, the FSC. So do they have some kind of certification, third-party verified, that really speaks to their values? Okay, and then packaging. You can order event supplies with a request for little to no packaging if you just are communicative with your vendor. Amazon is a great example of this. They actually have frustration-free packaging at checkout that you can choose, and it will just pack your items in a correct size box and not send something very small in a giant box or with packing peanuts or something like that. So just try to ensure that you're using or communicating that you really want to reduce your waste in the procurement of your items. Styrofoam, just say no. Styrofoam is not recyclable by any standard whatsoever, definitely not here at ASU. So do not order any items that have styrofoam with them, including the packing materials. Yeah, definitely not a good thing to bring onto our campus. Decorations, try to source your decorations from a rental, borrowing, sourcing from a friend. secondhand is always great too. Just think about finding those materials somewhere else before having to source them brand new. The Fulton Engineering Dean's Office catalog is fantastic. I think there's a link on here to that, but they have an online catalog that you can visit and borrow and rent things from them for free. Their event decoration. So yeah, right there. Evergreen materials. So when you're printing any signage, banners, anything like that for your event, thinking long-term about the use of that material. So you don't want to produce anything that after the event is done, it's kind of obsolete and you can't use it again. So if you're printing banners and you know an event is happening every year the same month, that's great. You can put the name of the event and the month that it usually takes place. An example for us is Campus Sustainability Month. Every year it happens in October. We're pretty confident and we can print that on a sign. The specifics of those details every year will change. And with that, we'll just print out a QR code and put it on a blank space that we've created on the signage so that it's kind of evergreen in that way. So you can include the name of your event, the month that it usually takes place, and then maybe the contact to your organization. So the handles of your social media, email, things that you know aren't going to change over time. And then you can just print out a little slip of paper or a QR code to stick right on the poster. And then you can use it over and over again. Okay, speaker gifts. So if you're having a speaker attend your event, just thinking sustainably about that. So does the gift avert waste? Does it contribute to a low carbon lifestyle? Is it local? Is it fair trade? And just kind of, yeah, some good examples of that might be a plant-based cookbook is a cool gift. Something like reusable utensils, fair trade tea or coffee. And all ASU licensed apparel actually is Fair Labor Association certified. So you can also gift them that, and it's got that third-party certification attached to it too. And then swag, huge thing at ASU. Trying to procure things that are sustainable. We have a great resource we'll talk about here in a second of just a collection of those different items you can actually find that have been put together by Staff Sustainability Council. But buy items that attendees will really value and they'll want to use over and over again, and that also contribute to future sustainable habits. So having a giveaway like a reusable grocery bag is great. It will be used over and over again and also will avert plastic bag use in the future in their daily life. So some items like these are great, will help sustainable habits in the future. And if you're doing t-shirt giveaways, try your best to source them either cotton or 50-50 cotton or recycled materials. So kind of averting using synthetic fabrics. Okay, and this was the resource I was mentioning. This is the purchasing toolkit for sustainable promotional materials put together by Staff Council. It has the best practices for ordering swag. So ask your vendors.
You come in.
Or swag specifically if you need to be
Yeah,
specific.
what's up?
So definitely check this out if you're looking to purchase some swag. Okay, we do have time for questions before I move on to the next section.
Question. How does this list work with the list we have from procurement? So like is there a list from procurement that's already been vetted that they're known as a sustainable partner at the university that we can just go to if we want to make sure that they're sustainable in their practices?
Have sustainable and diverse vendors, and they are flagged in the procurement system, and they should have like an asterisk that say sustainable and diverse. So diverse businesses would just be a local business that's women owned or person of color or a minority. And sorry, did someone else have an answer? Okay, sorry. So we also have an assistant director of sustainability and diversity that works for procurement. So if you're hosting a large event, they might have a better idea of any small businesses or local businesses that they really encourage you to support as well. So you can always reach out to them. You can always email us and we can connect you at the USP@asu.edu. I know some years we have significant purchases with some of these small local businesses, and some years we really fall short. We do report that spend annually as a university for supporting our local community. So it's always great to support those businesses. I think there was, yeah.
So we've run into some trickiness with the evergreening of the inserts that go in the A-frame through ASU Print Lab, where it's got, like, when you're kind of submitting it, it's got required fields for dates, and it kind of won't let you put generic things in there. I don't know if anyone has any tips or tricks of how to do that when we're talking specific to A-frames.
That's something great that we can work on with Print Lab. We'll work very closely with them. So that's something that we can definitely add to our list to address at a further time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it does. So,
Yeah, it has to have a specific date on it. You can't just do a generic date.
okay.
And then technically we don't want to tape anything over it and then not be under brand guidelines and things like that. So that is definitely a hiccup for us.
Right. So are you submitting through just kind of the online system for ordering forms? Yeah. So what we do sometimes, if we have kind of a weird request, we'll just reach out to the print@asu.edu email and say, hey, this is kind of our specific thing we're looking for. Are you able to meet these parameters? They might work with you more individually on that level instead of just kind of going through the system, and maybe be able to exclude the need for a date. I don't know, but they usually are really cool about working with us on specific project parameters.
Still got this one.
All right, cool.
All right, I think we have a whole nother section too, if we can move forward. All right, so catering, we already talked about catering a little bit in the stadium here, but we're going to talk about other areas on campus too. So next slide. So how can you look for a sustainable catering event? You can definitely encourage plant-based eating by providing lots of arrays of items like more vegetables, more fruits, starches, and then minimal proteins. Just when you're looking at proteins and you're choosing an item, remember that red meat is most carbon intensive. Poultry is less carbon intensive, and then always we encourage plant-based as a default as well. You can look for Aramark's Decidedly Green menu. The stadium just launched a few more plant-based items. They have a nacho bar that's made with Beyond Beef crumbles. And I would guarantee you no one would be able to tell that that is not meat. So it's a fun way. Definitely at the event, they're going to say this is Beyond Meat. And you can definitely send out a note beforehand saying you are encouraging guests to go plant-based. You can look again for Aramark's Decidedly Green menu. Definitely look for caterers that have sustainability as a priority. We're lucky here at ASU, all three of our contracted food vendors at Lasta, Sodexo, and Aramark all have plant-based items. They all have great waste practices. So when you're bringing in something off campus from like a food vendor, just make sure to keep that in mind and ask those questions of how do you guys reduce waste in your practices? What sort of disposables are you going to bring? And keep in mind which bins you have available at your event as well. You can always look for locally grown items. You can look for the USDA organic certified cage-free eggs. You can again look for that fair trade tea or coffee. We actually are the largest fair trade university in the United States, so it's always good to support any of those products through our vendors. So, all right, so I apologize, but I'm gonna turn around and read this to you guys because I don't have it all memorized. So definitely make sure to have a plant-based option. You can always accommodate vegan and vegetarian if you want to default to have protein. You can look for sustainably sourced meats. So definitely a popular one is like a grass-fed beef. So if you're serving beef, definitely asking about that. We always encourage local Sonoran foods. And it really, like when we talked about hosting like legislature or hosting these government officials, And any visitors that we have in town, it's always great for them to see Arizona and the food that we offer here. So if you can like reach out to a caterer and ask like, what sort of Sonoran items do you have, just to kind of expand that array and really like host in Arizona. So this is the biggest one, and I know maybe someone that is an event connoisseur can kind of go into it, but the best way to save food waste and to save money for your event is to make sure you have that accurate guest count. So with ASU Catering, you can change that guest count up to 72 hours in advance. Let's say you say 72 hours beforehand, you RSVP for like 100 people, and then for some reason you have like 40 people cancel. It is still better to let them know. They can actually package something and donate it versus like putting it on the line. So you're not having all that food waste. You can keep track and ask them how many meals they've donated then. And I know you're still paying for it though, but this way you're not just throwing it away from the catering line. And then reminding about a zero waste event. So we have a great setup in this room, actually. If you look behind you, you have your compost and recycling bin. So here at this location, you'd be able to say like, we are having a zero waste event. Please make sure all of your items can either go into the recycling or the compost. And consider ordering reusable plates. I know that's an additional cost. That's definitely something that they do at like Old Main, the Memorial Union, and at the U Club. All right, next slide. So certified coffee and tea. Again, we really encourage fair trade certified, Rainforest Alliance certified, or USDA organic. We do have a list of the sustainable coffee companies. So when this is sent out, you can definitely click on that. ASU Catering does have a fair trade coffee upon request. At Starbucks, even you can request a fair trade or an organic if you're buying like the boxed coffee to go for your event as well. All right, so looking at waste reduction. So can I just ask how many people think about the end waste of their event when they're planning? I love it. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of when you're planning, you're not really thinking about the end of the line. So it's definitely something to consider. We'll go to the next slide. So bin placement, kind of like what I just went over. Definitely ask your venue, like what sort of bin setup do they have available? If you want compost at your event and they don't have it, you can always contact Zero Waste or contact the building services as well. I know like in Memorial Union, it's possible to get that compost bin in the second level, and just making sure everything's labeled. And then if you have any questions, you can always email the recycleq@asu.edu, which is our zero waste team. All right, dishware and serving utensils. So it can be confusing somewhat when we have an event and we provide a bunch of different disposables. That's why it's important to label, as well as like keeping in mind, okay, we have all of these items that can be composted. Like we have the Eco Products cup that they have here up on the compost sign there. So if you're thinking about food waste as well, do know that ASU, the way it's set up is that most of the caterers back of house are already composting. So when you have food left on the line, like back here, if we had anything left, that would all be composted as well. Encouraging to bring your own utensils and water bottles. So this is a good ping you can send out like the day before when you send out that last reminder, like, hey, please bring your own water bottle and we will go ahead and have a fill station. And then bringing your own utensils. So this is another one, just put that quick reminder in, like we encourage you to bring your own utensils to reach our zero waste goal. Post-event waste reduction. All right, so I know some of you already do this. So collecting your name tags and badges for reuse. This not only saves that from going into the landfill, you can also save some funds by not having to purchase them for each event. Saving artwork, decorations, like Paige was saying, like just trying to reuse or borrow, and then making sure that after the event, if you have things left on the table, you're either reusing them or trying to recycle the packaging materials. We do offer a zero waste event checklist. So that'll, I believe, be sent out and you can click here and it kind of provides a guide of if you definitely want your event zero waste. You can follow that guide and you can also just talk to your caterers, talk to the building services on what's available at that location as well.
And in addition to the zero waste event checklist, we also have our own USP Green Event Planner checklist, which kind of focuses on the broader event planning, not just waste focused. This is a quick 2-pager. It kind of condenses everything we've talked about today. If you click this link when these are sent out afterwards, you'll be able to view this and just kind of have it as a reference as you're planning your events.
Over what we just went over. Does anyone have any sustainable tips that they've done at their event that's worked out really well that they would encourage others to do?
Whenever we do an event in this building, in the memorial unit, anywhere where there's students, when the event is closing, we send out the call to all the students, because if you have leftover food, students will eat it every time. They really don't care what you're putting in front of them. It's free and it's food. So we always try and make sure, I tell them I'd always rather have it eaten than thrown away. That's a given. So in almost every building, you can find students or somebody will say, yeah, I'll come and eat that food. Definitely. How do we reach out to the students? It wouldn't, depending on the venue that we're in. So like if we were here, we would say to the team here, like, hey, tell your students, or tell there's the Tillman Center, in fact, is in this building. And so we'll say there's a lot of students in that building, just come on up and get the food. When we're in the student union, we'll tell the director of the student union, whoever we're dealing with there, because they always have students on site. Sometimes we've been at events and if they're outdoors or whatever, students come by and you'll see them looking longingly at the food and we'll be like, hey, we're done, come and eat. And they just send out the note to their friends. They just walk by. Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes you don't have to send out the alcohol, but we always invite students. We also, depending on the food, caterers will sometimes let us take food out. Not always, depends on the food. So, leftover cookies or, things that are not going to just immediately go bad, things that aren't cooked, that kind of stuff. Sometimes you can just ask for to-go boxes and staff can take it with them as well. But it depends on the food. Or you can bring your own. Yes, we have on occasion. We've been known to come to an event with a lot of Ziploc bags. With a lot of Ziploc bags. Can I ask you guys, when we're doing events, I know that we reached out when we were doing West Valley Forward. And there wasn't, how big is your team? It just seemed that for that event, there wasn't enough people to help support that event. So we went in with just trash because we wanted to do something, but sometimes I know that we've reached out and I just don't know how big your team is and what events can you support.
Yeah, so we're actually University Sustainability Practices. So we are actually separate from ASU Zero Waste, who's actually located in facilities. But both of our teams are fairly small, definitely under about 10 people. So the ASU Moving and Event Services used to provide compost bins. They do not anymore. So some of the buildings are equipped with this already, and then some of them can be utilized per like ASU Catering can help making sure your event is zero waste. But we don't offer like on-site bin service at this time.
So what would you like say, other than catering, whatever? That was one where everybody had their all their different things. So we just brought in regular trash cans. So I felt badly because there was a lot of stuff that probably could have been recycled and composted, but we just didn't have a way to manage that with our staff.
Yeah,
So I don't
where
know
is
if there's-
that?
Is
Where-
there any other places like in town? Are there any companies or any janitorial services that will do that separation of trash or maintain the trash, compost, whatever?
They'll do waste pickup. No one really sorts it. So
Okay.
like we have like a third party vendor that sorts the waste from the stadium after game day. But that's a very large scale event where they do sort through the waste. Where was your event at?
Well,
Sorry.
the most recent one was West Valley Forward at the West Campus.
At West Campus.
Yeah.
Okay. And you didn't have any provider from Aramark or
Yeah,
any?
Aramark provided food, but yeah, go ahead.
I work on the zero waste team, and I know at LASTA they do the sorting. They're more sustainable, so like that's an option if you're looking for catering. I know that right now the MU they're they found their compost bins. So hopefully soon you can request compost at the MU. Like right now we're working with other buildings with Airmark and catering to try to get compost at the events. But like Krista said, like we're very limited staff. So we do what we can. And so we're trying to work with the other departments to make it happen. But check out the MU and Atlasta.
And I don't know if it was your office or the other office. At one time, there was a place where we could send old banners and they were made into bags. Is that still happening? Do you know? Old vinyl banners.
So I remember that, and
Yeah.
I think we have a few of the bags. I don't believe that was actually either of our departments, so we were
Okay.
just collecting them for a project.
Okay, so there's somebody that will do that. So, because that's the other thing. I mean, so if you have vinyl banners that are out of date or just have been used too many times, that was something that we could do. And I've got a lot of banners.
I believe the program's starting back up in the fall, so I can connect you or anyone else who would want that information. Send you his email, but to my understanding, it's supposed to be happening soon.
Because it was kind of cool. Yeah, your question, Becker.
Not really a question, just a comment. I did an event at Coaches Club last month, and they're offering box lunches, I guess, because of the pandemic. And we didn't want everything individually boxed because we didn't want the waste. So you can ask for them to not box it up. So we had some boxes available for the end if people wanted to take anything that was left over, but we just put it out as kind of like a buffet. The fruits and the little salads were individually little, they had the little cups. So that was unavoidable, but at least we didn't have all those boxes to throw away.
From a volume perspective, that helps your event stay looking nice too, so that you don't have bins overflowing, because really there's just not enough space in any really room for, let's say, 100 boxes to fit inside.
I have a question because I've gotten this question from a couple of you. So with some of us having new names to colleges and units, has there been a solution to what to do with old branded either items or linens or anything along those terms? Because I mean, it sucks to just throw them away.
So for like linen, I would say ASU surplus. I would definitely give them any sort of item, I'd say that looks like it could be reused. If you think linen, maybe even a student group could turn it around and use it. We've given some of our old branded stuff to ASU surplus as well. You can always reach out to ASU Zero Waste though. I think we got a request this morning about somebody was getting rid of a bunch of like graduation gowns and where can they put them. So like ASU Zero Waste can either say like, we will take them or you can give them to ASU surplus too.
Sorry, we're laughing because we know who that
Oh,
was. About the
sorry, yeah.
graduation gowns. Wasn't us. Yeah, we gave them your names.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I'm monitoring Zoom, but I don't see anything coming through. Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. It says, when I used to manage ASU Day at the Capitol, I hired a local cleaning company to come and pick up leftover trash and sort recyclable items. I'm sure the same service could be used for large scale events on campus. I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head, but it can be worth a few costs. So a few local cleaning companies.
I apologize, I skipped over that. Recycled City, so they can come and pick up compost too. You do have to be careful though, because we do have contracts with haulers at the university. So it is always good to still reach out to ASU Zero Waste, because you can't be at the MU and have a third party come in and take your waste. It's just, we have building contracts, we have hauling waste contracts that we cannot have a third party provider on campus. But exactly, if you are like on off-site, this is definitely an opportunity to use a different vendor. And I would highly encourage Recycled City. In fact, they do residential composting too. So if you're interested in compost like at your house, you can hire them as well.
I did have a question. I did a special event green. I've been at the university now for 5 years. Back then, Marcus Jones actually got me. I'm calling him out because he was on the Zoom. So he got me to do the green event planner certification, where you had to submit your event and you got the status of like gold, silver, bronze. Is that still a thing? Is that something you still want us to do?
I can speak to this. So that's our sustainability recognition program. That is still a thing. So you can have your event recognized. Now, our team is very small. the management of that program has been kind of difficult as turnovers happen and things like that. So we've turned the program into a pledge. So you can submit your event. Our team will see it that it has been recognized, but you're basically pledging that you will follow the practices that we teach in this training to that event and future events too. So it's still a thing. If you want to, you can always submit your event to the Sustainability Recognition Program. And then we also have lifestyle, student org, and office at the moment for recognition. Yeah. So you'll also be certified through Career Edge, like I mentioned, with the sign-in sheet. Hopefully that's been passed around. So
Did anybody miss the sign-in sheet? Anybody?
oh,
Okay.
and over here too afterwards.
Okay,
I
cool.
know we said our team is small, but we are responsive. So if you
Yes.
do have questions and you're like, how can I make this more sustainable? USP@asu.edu, and we will help you and encourage you and connect you with any vendor that you may need too.
I do have a few more things and then we can do some more questions. Oh.
Robin McNulty. You can unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question. Is it a high five? Is it a hands up party? Let's go. Okay.
Okay, just a few more things and then we can get into questions. So, yeah, next slide. Yeah, so just a quick plug on a few other things that you can do to be a more sustainable Sun Devil. We have our Green Devil Ambassador Program. We have some of our GDAs out in the audience I see today. So this is an opportunity to become a sustainability representative for your office or your team. It's just 2 trainings that you take online. You've already taken one of those 2, so you've already taken seeds. We have our UBS Green Devil training. Once you've taken those 2, you can join our program. It's just a network of ASU staff and faculty that come together with a shared passion of sustainability and making their practices more sustainable. So we have quick meetups every month. We like to share tips and tricks with one another. So great opportunity to network with peers that have sustainability in mind. All right, congratulations. That is the end of this training. Your your Career Edge completion should be all good to go within the next couple of days. So thank you so much. And I hope you put some of these practices into play. Sorry. Oh, question. Great.
I was just asking if there was a sign up sheet going around in person, if you're capturing the attendees online.
Yes, good point. Yeah, I can take a picture of the screen or something and write those down by hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Cool. Well, we're always responsive, like Krista said, always happy to work with you individually, and happy event planning.
All right, thanks for your time.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, we got it. And we actually have our next presenters here as well. So we're gonna just jump straight into talking about the food and, oh my God, I'm gonna mess this up forever. Catering and food guidelines, is that what we're calling it? Food and catering guidelines? Okay. Catering and food exception process review. Okay, cool.
Are we ready to go or are we? We're ready to go? Okay. So we've held a couple of these trainings already and also many side trainings that are on these updated for the process that's been updated for the selecting food vendors that can be used for events. But so a lot of it has come out from what we've put out there, and then also a lot of work with different organizations and heads of different disciplines, you'd say, at the university. And so a big thanks is, going with risk management, and I can't remember actually, risk management, insurance over with talking about COIs, and we're going to get into a lot of this stuff, but different divisions with the events and meetings is what she's from. I'm food safety and health, as well as just with the MU and different aspects of where a lot of that planning just always been funneled right through the MU, even though this kind of process is something for the whole university wide. So a lot of things that got into this. And oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Maybe there's not an agenda with our name on it. Yeah, sorry. And I am Mike Britt. So I'm the food safety and health manager. So think health inspector. So that's who I am for the university. So that's a good point. So that, because a lot of times you have questions, and if it relates to anything with the food code, food inspections, event food, like we're going to talk about here, and places getting approved, and just inquiries about stuff, we're going to say enough on the slide we do, but food safety and health webpage, go there, and it describes the process that we're going to be reviewing here, and then also my contact information and stuff well too. So this is all Sarah. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm on. Hi, everyone. Sarah Strominger. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the program manager for event and meeting services within the Memorial Union and Student Pavilion here at Tempe, part of that larger Unions and Centers team.
And no, I think that's it. So we're glad to be here. And we've already done it a couple times, and I've done, like I was mentioning, a number of small ones, just with different people, even just one-on-one on the phone or Zoom with different people's teams meetings when they have their business meeting and they invite me over to talk about this update and all that stuff. So that's open for you all as well. Or if you hear people and they say this, we went over it here and then stuff questions, then you could just email me, and my information's on that webpage, or you'll see it on this as well. Go ahead.
If you want to shift to the next slide. It looks like
That's the same one.
Yeah, we're missing a few slides. That's okay. We're just to overview. Well, it's been removed. There was an introduction slide, and then we're going to just talk about food exception process, types of food exceptions, and some of the process moving forward. If you have attended any of our other training sessions through MECA or information sessions through MECA, you will find new information in this session. So we're excited to share some of those updates with you, and then just review the information for those who haven't heard it from us yet. Okay, you can move forward, and then go ahead and move forward, Mark. Perfect. Okay, so this food exception process is not necessarily new. We're doing a heavy round of education and information sharing because there were some changes to past practice when it came to these guidelines and past policies. So just to give a kind of a high level overview of things that haven't changed or are continuing in this process, there are still food exception processes in place, which means that if you are utilizing vendors that aren't our contracted food vendors through campus, that there's some sort of check process in place to make sure they are able to be utilized, that all of their food safety protocol is in place, and that there's no increased risk in utilizing any one particular vendor. These practices that we are going to be talking about today affect all of our ASU campuses and connected spaces in some way. So, as Michael mentioned, while many of our forms and processes up until this point have really funneled through the Memorial Union team, this is not unique to Tempe. This does affect all of our ASU campuses. And then ultimately, the goal is mitigation of risk, again, both for attendees of events and programs, but also for your teams and offices as well. So we can jump forward to the next. Perfect. So what's been updated? There are a few things that are big changes, and then there's some additional actually updates that we'll provide through our session today. So one is that the approved vendor list is no longer a practice for campus. This is for a few reasons. One, how this approved vendor list and program initially formed was not necessarily a sustainable practice for us in regard to risk management, in regard to some of the kind of financial or policy related practices that were connected to this program. The other big reason why the approved vendor list was assessed and removed as a practice is that we know that vendors might not stay eligible to serve food or remain in good standing for a full year at a time. So we wanted to remove any risk by assuming that any one vendor is going to remain eligible for a full year. Another update is that there is more event planner or manager involvement in ensuring that vendors you would like to utilize for your programs are in good standing. And we'll go through how to do that. It's a fairly easy process. In the past, that's all really happened through Michael. Every exception request that we would have received was checked, verified, and responded to by Michael as one person. And the goal is that we all take some collective responsibility for making sure that the vendors we're utilizing work for us. And then fees for temporary food licenses. We'll talk about this in more depth. The practice of this license hasn't changed, but the pricing has changed a touch. So we will talk more about that. You can go to the next. Perfect. So as mentioned, ideally, we're thinking about our contracted food caterers for campus as our first option for food service for events and programs. So those catering vendors are Aramark, Sodexo, and Atlasta. And each of these three may have some buildings or spaces on campus where they're considered the exclusive vendor, meaning they're the only one that should be utilized within that particular space. But each of these three could also serve food at really any other space on campus. They would be the deciders of if they have the capacity to do so, but they aren't limited to only particular buildings on campus. Exceptions, we get questions a lot about food exceptions for contracted spaces. That's up to the food vendor if they would like to provide that exception or not. There are some reasons why that might be the case, but exceptions are very rare. So you want to be mindful of that as you're planning and understanding if a space is contract exclusive, what your options might be. I'm gonna move to the next. Perfect. So we're going to talk about the two types of food exceptions that exist. So the first is type 1 or ready to eat. So these are food or beverage items that when you receive them, they're essentially ready to serve immediately. So these are consumable without any additional preparation. So think about ordering pizza, ordering sub sandwiches that you're going to serve, picking up cookies from Crumble Cookies, wherever that might be. So again, common examples, yeah, prepackaged food, things like items from Costco or a Target might fall under this as well. If you want to go to the next, type 2 food exceptions are on-site food preparation. So a team of caterers or staff from a food vendor are coming to your program. They are preparing something on site. So this could be food trucks. It's a really common example. You have a waffle bar. They're pouring the batter. They're serving it to the person who they've made it for, as an example, an omelet bar, something like that. Again, the important thing is staff are on site. Food preparation in some way is happening on site. So we're going to talk through the kind of what the steps are for each of these two types of food exceptions or considerations that need to be made. So for ready to eat, this is actually, if you've been to any of our other trainings, this is where the largest change has happened when it comes to process and protocol. So first step is you're confirming your location. If you are hosting your event in a contract exclusive location and you want to provide ready to eat items, then we have what is called the food exception request form. And that form is now truly going to be utilized for these exception requests for contract exclusive locations. So that form would be filled out and then forwarded to the appropriate contracted food vendor so that they can review and make a decision about whether or not they would provide an exception. If you are hosting your event in a space that is not food contract exclusive, you are no longer required to fill out that food exception request form. If you fill it out a lot, you should be very excited about that. There are still some steps to verify that the vendors you are using are eligible and some steps for you to take from a risk management lens to ensure you keep records of those verifications, but you will not receive, again, if you're programming in a space that is not contract exclusive, you won't receive any additional verification from us at that point. We will talk about how to verify once we work through these two timelines. And then there is a QR code here for the food exception request form. We would ask for that to be completed at least 14 days in advance. Again, only needed if you are looking for an exception to working with the contracted food vendor in a venue that is contract exclusive. And then that will be shared with those appropriate parties, depending on the building and the contracted provider. Zero cost for this sort of food exception.
Yeah, and just a quick comment on that, on the last one. That is a change that came out from initially when we first started doing this, taking your guys's, I don't know if it was you, but who's here today, but
The
it
collective
was the
you.
collective organizing and planning of events people, right? Giving a suggestion and why they were thinking, why do we need to submit a food exception request for a place that we know is not under contract? Once we know it's not under contract, why do we need to do that? And we're like, that is true. We don't, that is, you do not need to, let's rework this. And so that's, here we are now. So this would be the reason why we haven't shared like video and other PowerPoints from before, because it didn't change from that. And we don't want to create more confusion on what, didn't you just say in this PowerPoint? Well, we did, but we're taking good suggestions and requests and stuff to make alterations to what this plan is. And it's going to be way better, I think. You guys would think as well on your own. And we'll go into explain, like I said, how the second part of self, you, the planner, approves and keeps record and all that stuff in a little bit here. But just want to say thank you, collective you, right? You guys too. But and I think it was a good idea. So we can go to the next slide. So now we're talking about type 2. So that first one was the type 1. And again, just to kind of quickly break it down, type 1, ready to eat. And the food is arrived, delivered, you take it, DoorDash, who cares? But the food arrives to the event without on-site food prep. Okay, so there's not somebody there from the outside vendor preparing the food like you would in a mobile food truck. The truck's there, it's on-site, someone's there doing it. An actual true caterer is there on-site with the booth and table, and they're managing and all the food safety. It should be hand washing all that stuff with sternals underneath, keeping it hot, all that jazz. That stuff is type 2, right? But if the other one is, again, ready to eat, just deliver. So type 2. So if you're having one, well, this is a reminder, if you have one in exclusive space, you still need to use those catering licensed contracted vendors. So it'd be Aramark, Sodexo, Atlasta, at those places. But outside of them, you can use other vendors. And this is one of the changes with not having to be held to an approved list as well, a good thing. Because people say, how do I get on the list? And there's always a lag of maybe submitting and getting approved and then, and just waiting and stuff. So this is another good thing. There's not having an approved food provider list. It means everybody is opened up. You could use all other vendors, right? Not in an exclusive space, but they have to meet certain criteria we're going to go over here. But yeah, any outside vendor would be able to be used, provided they have a permit and a good history. And we're going to go over that here. But yeah, so that's the difference. So verifying, let's see, verified food vendors provided food are eligible to be utilized. So that verifying the food vendor will work. This right here, step type 2, will all be handled by myself still. Because all these, since it has a fee, it talks about in the bottom right, there is still a fee, which means I'll be there as my schedule is able to allow. If things overlap, I can't go to every event maybe, but every event that I can, that I'm not booked, one's at Poly, one's at West, one's at Tempe, everywhere that I can, I'll be the inspector on site and do those inspections. And that'll be the one handling that. So I'll be handling every single one of these type 2s, still be coming and funneled through the ASU Food Safety and Health Program. But the process that I use is the same. You guys will explain a little bit that you'll use. Very similar for doing type 1s. So you submit an application, which is a fillable PDF, and it can be found, by the way, if this doesn't work or if you ever can't remember, just go to the Food Safety and Health webpage. And in fact, all the stuff we're saying, by the way, is in words on the Food Safety and Health webpage describing type 1, type 2, and we're doing this to kind of help explain a little better, allow some Q&A as well, but it's all there in writing. And then below that is all the forms and stuff. So you'll find a temporary food establishment permit form at the bottom of that page. And you'll find links to the food exception requests for type 1s on that page as well. So, but you'll fill that out, and we want it, it's supposed to be 7 working days before the event. And this is again for on-site food providers. And so you just fill out the fillable PDF, email that in directly to me, to my program, and I'll get the review, and then also the payment, which normally it comes from the vendor. That says all this on the top of the form. It has my contact information as well, but they would fill it out. A lot of times, by the way, a quick save for planners like yourself is if you guys fill out, I think it's lines 1 through 4, that's stuff about the event and who the coordinator is, who the planner is, what's their email, contact information, like the first 4 things. And you save that as the one that you use and share with the vendor now to fill out the rest, which is all the business name, their permit number, their address, and all that other jazz that they know, right? That's kind of a quick help when I made this a fillable form. A lot of people have liked that. So just remember, that's a good way to do it faster. But that'll be submitted to me via email. Then you'll also request from them a certificate of insurance. And the COI is something that would be kept with the planner or for the venue. So it's something that it's not maintained by my program. It'll be maintained because it's good for an extended period of time, a year or 2. I don't know how they expire. I'm not licensed in that registration, but I know that it has to be requested and asked for, and then it's just kept and maintained with your event planning so that you know once you have it and say you use them at a next event a month later, a month later, you have the COI, it's still good and valid from that last time. You have to request a new one every time. So that's why it's just managed and maintained with the venue planning, okay, with the event planning. And then the payment. So it says, like I said, on the top of the form, you'll see it says how to do that. It's all by check or money order. Again, this is usually by the vendor, the outside food vendor, the restaurant, the oregano's, the chilies, the whatever it is, right, that you're ordering food from, Pita Jungle, okay? So usually they would pay that, a check or money order. But if ever the organization inside ASU wants to pay it, that also happens quite a bit. And so with funds from ASU and you're paying it, you would just maybe when you email me the filled out form, the temporary food permit, put in there the CC, SC, PG, finance codes, and we could have that pulled that way, this $85 fee for the temporary food permits. As she mentioned before, it used to be 70, now it's 85. This is just one of the fees that I'd like to explain this. It's been about 8 to 10 years since permits and fees have been reviewed and updated with the food safety and health program. A lot of that's due to COVID, but the 3 or 4 years before that, I don't know why. I wasn't here. I've been here about 2 years. I don't know why it wasn't, but it wasn't. And so now it has been early this year, and this is just one of the fees that was changed. So we can go to the next slide. And okay, and good. This one, this is a good reminder here. So we were talking about how often where the temporary food permit's good for, and at what length, and how far can it be extended. So ASU is huge, as we know, but it recognizes that there's 4 geographic locations, which would be like sites or locations. So you have Tempe, you have downtown, you have West, and you have Poly. Each one of these would be recognized as its own site. So you could use the same vendor with a temporary food permit for which they were approved and they paid $85, right? They paid the fee. You could use them as many times as you want in a 2-week period at another event, other people even could, that same vendor at that same location. But if you had it at a different location, it'd be a different permit different temporary permit they'd have to get. So if you had like in the same day, even if the event's the same, but it's over at Poly and downtown or something, I don't know, they'd have to have 2 permits. Okay, so it's just because they're different locations. That's kind of what it means. But otherwise, it's good for 2 weeks. The permit, just as a reminder, the temporary food permit's good for 2 weeks. This is contrary to what you may have seen, or if you ever work with Maricopa County outside us, there's a jurisdiction outside us, right? They do each event, and they actually do each site, meaning like almost address. And so I was looking at that, I was like, oh my gosh, that would be incredibly, not just mean, but I think it's unnecessary to make each like building or site have to get a new permit when you're right in the Tempe campus. So I've been able to extend that out so at least it holds all the campus. Excuse me, sorry. So at least it holds each campus as its own site. So you'd have at least that. So that was a question I had somewhat afterwards. Why does it have to be each site? Well, I'm already extending it out to at least the whole campus to include that, as opposed to how public health does it outside of us, right? And a vendor's received a temporary permit, same site, I just went over that. Multiple departments can utilize the same vendor. So that's just a reminder, that's usually a question I get. Can we use the same one? Yes. And so a tip with this, I don't remember if we say on the next one, but if I go to the next slide, let's see, does it say it on, so you guys can read it? Just COI, okay, but anyways, that last bit, it says, there is a reminder, there's not a, like a kept list that we keep, that we're gonna be able to publish. That gets too close, we've checked with different people, too close to like an approved food provider list again, right? So it has too close to an appearance of something like that. So there won't be a published list. But like I told you, all these type 2s, which means on-site food providers with an $85 fee, all those, they all get funneled through me. So if you are ever wondering, and do they have a recent permit that they was already paid for at my campus? I thought I saw them or whatever, just shoot me an email or send me a call or whatever. I can definitely tell you. But it's not something I can have published, but I definitely have the information. So just ask. That's no problem. That's no problem at all. If you don't already know, okay? And that way people would not have to get paid, charged again and again for the same site, and they already had paid their fee and already were approved, okay? COIs now, so best practices. So this is a good QR code that you can look up there if this is something new to you. It goes to business and finance program, and they explain and have a lot of answers to what you might be wondering about. Again, Sarah and I don't do this. That's why there's a whole program that does that. But they can answer a lot of those questions that might be gray areas for you or something like that, and also reach out to people and numbers and emails that are on there for more additional questions. We're just told that you do need to make sure that when you have a temporary food permit, like an on-site food vendor, that you request that they send in also a COI. And this gets the detail of exactly what should be on it, how ASU should be listed as a approved entity on the COI and all stuff, things like that. Sure there's not anything else there, but again, yeah, it's ASU Risk Management is the one that put that together, and it does seem pretty straightforward. If this is new to you, I can still find the right person if you need, but right there you'll find that. We can go to the next slide. Oh, it's still me. Okay, so determining food vendor. Okay, this is good. So next slide, and we'll go here. We're thinking about this. So number one, does the vendor hold a current permit to operate? And number two thing we're checking is, do they have a good or sufficient recent food safety inspection history? These are two basic things. So it's like, what do you actually check? What are we vetting? And the we used to be me, but the we is now us, right? This is what we're all vetting, right? And so it's, I tried to make it as simple as possible. And it was so good because the county that surrounds us, Maricopa County, publishes this stuff on a website. All the routine inspections. And FYI to you, if you didn't know that, you could look up where you just ate today. At the Taco Bell you ate at, the Subway, the Chipotle, if you ate somewhere, you could go to this website and you can look up right now, what's their inspection history? You could do that. But aside from that, doing it for our jobs, this is how you do it. You go to the county's website, you can just Google it right now, Maricopa County restaurant ratings. But let's hit the next slide. We're gonna talk about this first one here first. Does the food vendor hold a permit? Go to this one, Maricopa County restaurant ratings website. That's a link to it, but you can just Google it and bookmark it, especially in our biz, in our job, I would just bookmark that. And then once you get on there, you search the establishment by name or address. And I put that on there because it's a reminder, sometimes the name might not match what's in the website, what's with Maricopa County. The name on the outside of the building, they could easily change their name and not have changed it on the permit. So address usually is better, but sometimes you can't get the right address. Then do the name. Plus they can spell it all however they want. It could, it could be Mike's with a Z. It could be Mike's with a Z and an apostrophe, or no apostrophe, but it's got to be exact when you get the name. Okay. So it's got to be, that's how you search those up. And by the way, you don't have to fill all the fields too. That's a question, common question I got. You don't have to have all the answers, although you could just put in PETA and then you'll get PETA Jungle, PETA Taco, PETA, you'll get all of them, but do PETA and then the city. Glendale, and then you get all the PETA starting a name of establishments in Glendale only, and it will bring them all up. So there's different ways that you can learn. You'll see that. That's where it works. But if you find, and once you find that they have a permit, it comes up on there, and you see the page, it'll say on the kind of the left-hand side, right? It'll say the name, and then on the right, it'll say the address. Just make sure you find it. That means they have a permit. So number 1 is met. If they're listed there at all, it means they have a permit. Okay, next. Then you go into the number 2. So you're checking their recent food safety history. So this is also, you'll see, especially after you do 1 or 2 of these, incredibly easy as well. And so once your permit's been found, you click the permit number, the permit ID number. It's usually, if it's not a mobile food, usually restaurants are FD for food, FD dash, and then the number of the permit. If it's mobile food, it's MF dash, the year was given, 23 dash, then the number of that mobile food permit. Either way, you'll click on that link, and then it takes you right to their page, which will show below that all their recent inspections. And so you'll see a history of routine inspections, of re-inspections, of advisories, of OC, which means ownership change inspections, of all kinds of stuff. We just care about what we're doing, the routine inspection. So you look at the most recent routine inspection. I put a caveat on it because there's a program in the county called the Cutting Edge program. So they also call routine inspections verification visit for that. So either of those 2 work, but 90 plus whatever % are always routine inspection. But verification visit is just like a routine inspection, FYI. So, but you look at the most recent routine inspection, not re-inspection, okay? Not advisory, but look at the routine inspection and go across the page and then look at how many priority violations they have. And if it's 0, they're going to be approved. And a follow-up question I've gotten a lot about this after I've been presented this is, why do they have violations? What if they just got like a violation, like, and they're like, something's leaking, or I don't know, someone touched their head and then didn't, I don't know, something weak, that they're trying to say. Those aren't these violations. The priority violations are the biggest violations you can get. So that's why it's weighted on that. So you could have a place, you'll see when you look it up, it'll like, as you're looking at the page, it'll show like, at the top, it'll say the permit ID number, the establishment, their address, and then below that, it'll say the routine inspection and the date. And then you look all the way across, and it'll show like grades, because Maricopa County does grades too, but it's voluntary. So it might say not participating, or it might say A, B, C, D. So we don't care about the grade because it's not enforced. So don't even care about the grade. They got an A, all right. They got a C. You could have a C and no priority violations, the next column, and they'd be approved. You understand what I'm saying? So you might have a bunch of other violations that aren't critical, aren't big ones, and have a bad grade. But if you didn't have priority violations, they'd be approved for the event. Okay. So again, we're talking about routine inspection, the most recent one of the top of the list, routine inspection, how many critical priority violations they have on that routine inspection. Okay. Next slide. And here's an example of you doing a search. So like here, oh, I forgot, I used Pita Jungle in there. So you go put Pita Jungle in Tempe. There's a zip code. That's all you put in there. Next slide. So here's what the next slide looks like. If I put all that stuff in, this is what comes up. You'll click on that permit ID. It tells like what the permit number is. Look, they're both at the same address. This is the one close to us on Mill, on University. I mean University of Mill. They have an E&D and a food catering permit. So you might find if you were to like look up like a retail food grocer, like Safeway or Walmart or something like that, you might have like 6 listed there. Because they might have, we've all been in those places. They might have like a smoothie, or you get your own drink, and then you have a Starbucks in there, but they call it a Walmart, but really Starbucks runs it. You know, we don't need to get into all that stuff, but you might have a bunch listed under that same location. It's okay. You're looking at, well, how are they going to provide the food? If they're going to be on site, food catering, if they're just ordering food from them, that'd be the E&D. That's just the regular restaurant stuff. They're making it there. You don't need a catering license to order food from someone. Most everybody just has the E&D. Next slide. So this is what it looks like, the next page. This would be exactly kind of how you keep your screenshot, what we say here. This would be like your approval, like it says. You wouldn't have all the arrows on it. It's not necessary. That's just to show you. But the most recent routine inspection, don't care about the grade, but does it have 0 priorities, right? And then you take a screen grab of that and then save that as your approval, right? Next slide. Here's an example. Next slide is someone that wouldn't be approved. And I chose this one. Go back, please. Thanks. I chose this one because, I mean, these guys are probably great. It's just, they had a bad inspection one time, right? But this is a good example to show the most recent thing has 0 priority violations. And though you think, oh, they'd be approved. But the most recent thing is not a routine inspection, it's a re-inspection. So we don't wait on those. You go on the comprehensive full routine inspection. That's what matters, right? So here's an example. Most recent routine inspection. I don't care about participate or not, but they had a priority violation. That's a critical one, right? So they would not be approved. Okay.
I would jump in to also illustrate and take over if you want to. This is also an example of a vendor where, and it was on the previous screen as well, where at some point they were eligible to be used. So if you were seeking them out, let's backtrack in time from July 11th through November 8th, 2022, they would have been approved because they had an inspection with no priority violations. But then during their inspection on November 9th, they have a priority violation. So that means they're no longer eligible to be utilized on campus.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, and that is a real good point to say that someone who isn't approved like these guys, Delhi Palace, Cuisine of India, they would only be unapproved. They might have already been inspected again. And if they were, then they have a 0, you could use them, right? But it's a good point. This is another good point of the change from using an approved food provider list. And that method is somebody who was on there or maybe not allowed on there initially, they could still be used to not have, I don't know, to not discriminate against, not be open to all businesses. Because it's weighted only on that they have a permit and that their most recent routine inspection shows 0 priority violations. Okay, good point. Next slide. I don't know if this, let me know.
Yeah, we're going to pause. So we do have some kind of scenarios written out or common questions written out, but we will pause just to see what questions you have now before we would jump into those.
Do we need to capture these on, is there people like watching? Do we need a mic for questions? Mike is on the mic. But.
Okay, now, you mentioned Maricopa County. We have some centers that go out and do work in other counties. They also would need to access their inspection report, right?
If they, so again, I can't speak for others. 15 counties in Arizona.
Yeah.
I can't speak for if they have an on-site thing, but a lot of them do.
Okay.
Especially if it's a bigger one, like Pinal and Pima and stuff. But yeah, smaller ones like Greenlee or someone, maybe they don't, but they would have a way that we could research them. Again, that goes into the why we want 14 days ahead for food exception requests or 7 days ahead for the temporary to give us time to, if there's a weird scenario like that.
Okay. So if it's being sponsored by ASU, no matter where it's at, it needs to go through the process.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. You're making me think of this now. I've been asked, why do you need a new permit with ASU? People are like, why do we need that? If I have a permit outside in Maricopa County or Pima or whatever other county, if you have a permit to operate out there, why do I need one on ASU to do an ASU event? And it's because it's written in the code. You have to have a permit to operate in the jurisdiction in which you are operating. So, oh, sorry, you need a mic to get caught for.
Most of what you're talking about is ASU properties. So yeah, if you're up in Havasu and it's an ASU property, you would need to work with whatever that county is.
Is that what you mean? Then the events at? Then yeah, you go by that jurisdiction. So if it's at Havasu, if the event's just like in Pinal or something, but it's an ASU event you held over there, well, it's not an ASU property. It doesn't have to be approved and do all this stuff. You have to follow the local jurisdiction's property rules. So wherever that is, right?
Right. But ASU property is where you need to go through one of these 2 steps.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you're having a recruiting, let's say I'm from Nogales, you're going down there, there's no ASU property. You're just taking a bunch of people. More than likely, you're going to use a vendor from down there that does food that has to go through Santa Cruz and do all of that. So you don't have to bother them. You just got to have to make sure that they have the correct health inspections and all
It
that?
would follow the exact same. So I'm standardized with the FDA, which is the National Food Code. And so to know like how it's handled across the nation, and every county could be different a little bit, but everyone also still has the same rules. So they would still need to operate with a permit to operate in that jurisdiction, that would be Santa Cruz or wherever. You have to have a permit to operate. And if you don't have one in there, like someone has one in Maricopa County, but they don't have one in ASU's jurisdiction, then you have to get a temporary permit, which we're talking about, to operate. So that's the reason behind it. But yeah, and we don't have to bother, like she said, bother. I wouldn't be bothered, but I would just tell you what she just said right now. But say, oh, it's not an ASU property. Oh no, then I encourage you, for the benefit of you and everyone who's going to eat the food, look up, only order from a permitted and reputable place. I would just say to do that, but yeah. Right. There's another question over here.
So say I sign or I do all of this process and I look up my caterer and they're good to go. I sign a contract. My event's not until November. Say 5 days before my event, all of a sudden they have
out of here.
what?
Turn off your mic. Somebody out there.
Say 5 days before the event, they have a routine inspection and have a violation. I signed a contract with them months prior. What happens in that situation?
You would still honor, that's why I say the approval. So we try that, like what we say is try to not have it be more than 30 days. I allow would be up to 90 at the max. And this is just me as I'm doing this, because I'm aware that normal routine inspection kind of timeframes at the county or anywhere is usually about every 2, 3, 4 months. So I would be comfortable approving someone months down the road. But like, yeah, you could have one inspection and then within 30 days later, you could have another inspection that would be bad, like you're saying, right? And that would mean that if you approve then, you would not be approved, right? So you still just honor the first one. You hope that's just a one-off. And then only in the case if we were to find out that there was a major, even worse than priorities, I'm telling you, like say they were shut down, they were suspended their permit, revoked their permit for a time for something big like that. If we didn't know about it, we would know. They already approved. So we would know.
I have 2 questions. First, Mike, what's your email address?
Just my name, Michael.Britt, B-R-I-T-T.
Repeat the last name.
B-R-I-T-T.
Thank you. And the second question, what if I am holding an event at one of the exclusive locations, say University Club, but I know that the exclusive vendor, caterer at the moment there is at Lasta. What if I want to use another of the 3? For example, ASU Catering. I want to use it at University Club. I don't need any exceptions, right?
It would depend on if the building is contract exclusive. So I'll use my jurisdiction is the MU, right? So I know the Memorial Union has an exclusive contract with Aramark. So if someone wants to use Atlasta in the Memorial Union, they would have to submit that food exception request form in order for Aramark to approve Atlasta being utilized, for example. So I'm less familiar with University Club, but if as you work with that venue, if they say we are contract exclusive for Atlasta, then you would want to talk with them about what your options are for bringing those other vendors in.
And that's true.
Even though they're contracted through ASU, some buildings are specific vendor.
That is U Club.
And
Oh, U Club, I'm sorry.
U
Yeah,
Club
yeah.
is only at
U
Lasta,
Club-
and they will not permit any
Exactly.
other food to come in.
For that same reason. They have a contract that it's them. Right? And same thing, that's what the exclusive, contracted space means, right? Aramark's at the MUN Student Pavilion, and last is at the University Club or U Club. Is there another question? Oh, right here, sorry.
So I just want to clarify that for the food exception permit and the fee, is it standard practice for the vendor to pay that fee? Because in a previous conversation, you said, okay, whoever can pay the fee, it doesn't matter, which I'm sure still applies. But is it standard practice for the vendor to pay the fee? For the vendors that work with ASU, do they generally know this already? Is this something that we're going to be introducing to them? And you said also that if the vendor does have a permit for a campus that's valid for 2 weeks, then it's ideal for them to be paying the fee because then they're monitoring what's already paid. And so we shouldn't ever pay that fee directly from our department. Is that?
So, yeah, and just to clarify, you start off by saying food exception requests, so not to confuse. The food exception request is only type ones, no fee, right? Only
It's
type
type
ones.
2,
But
sorry.
type 2 on-site food prep, that's what we're talking about, with a temporary food permit, right? Those ones, yeah, if once you guys pull it up and you look on the actual form, that the fillable PDF, it doesn't mention anywhere on there ASU how to pay and all that stuff. That's just an allowance that we allow, knowing sometimes things down to the wire, and I don't know, you're trying to organize it, like, oh, we're just going to pay it or something, or ASU wants to pay it. But normally, yeah, you're saying, is it standard normal practice that the vendor pays it? Yes. And that's exactly how it's presented on the form. It says on the top how they pay. The check or money order is made out to Arizona State University, mailed to ASU Food Safety and Health, Michael Britt, and the address and all that jazz, right? So that form is really for the vendor to do, and they would normally send in that payment. And anyone, yeah, they're used to it if they've done it before. Usually they pay. So good question though. Is there another question or any of this? Maybe not. I'll make one more.
Mine's kind of silly, but is Domino's still allowed at the Memorial Union for students?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a great question. So some of our venues do have kind of food service within them. So for example, at the Memorial Union, there's one designated Domino's that's allowed, or ordering from, for example, the Chick-fil-A or the Subway in the Memorial Union falls under that Aramark umbrella. Now, if you wanted to use the MU Chick-fil-A at a different location, I guess that's contracted. You would have to put in the exception potentially, right? We won't make it overly complicated, but there are some venues like that. Cartel's Coffee is on campus. You might still need to put in that food exception request, for example, if you're working in an exclusive space, even though it's an ASU entity. But yes, Domino's still allowed.
Yeah, not a silly question. I've been asked that live. So just to touch back on it, places that other venues that aren't other stations, like if you see a Subway and a Jamba Juice and a Burger King and whatever, Einstein's, and you see them and they're maybe not the one at the MU. So you know the MU is contracted for events there, but what about Einstein's in the MU elsewhere, or another Einstein's if you're in Tempe, like at Armstrong Hall, and use that elsewhere? Yeah, they're permitted with ASU. So they have a permit to operate, like I just said, the jurisdiction is ASU, and they have a permit to operate with my program. So they're permitted to operate, and they can do events with ASU without having to get like additional like a temporary food permit or something, right? Unless they had on-site, then they'd have to still get a temporary food permit if they don't have a catering. And the example I gave about Pita Jungle, they had an E&D and a catering. They do that so they can go on site to places and be there on site catering, right? Not just deliver and buy, have a good event. Thank you for buying our food. But they have both permits because in order to be operating openly with open food actively, you have to have a food catering license or permit. So that led into another good scenario of questions I've had. So yeah.
Great question.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi. My next question is just curious about why after a restaurant has a routine inspection with 1 point, why, if the re-inspection is 0 points, why does that not qualify them?
So, and that's a good question. So again, we're talking about here with the violation, the priority violations, they're big violations. So again, they're like the biggest that you can get without being, I guess, shut down or something. That'd be like the biggest, right? Okay, but like aside from that, so that's why the simple that it was found a critical, a high priority violation, even though they corrected it, the way it's written in the food code even is yes, it must be corrected. Even the food code, when you find a priority violation, must be corrected. If not in the moment, within 3 days, correct it. It's a priority violation. Things like this would be like, just explain it like the types of violations would be like no water. Water is shut off. You don't have any water at the establishment. That's the priority, right? A step down from that, they call it priority foundation, is be like, well, it's not working here or there, but they have water, but it's maybe not hot enough or something, And then you can have a 24-hour fix, and it's not a priority, maybe, but And then even a step down from there would be all, they call them core non-criticals. It'd be like related to, you know, just dripping under the pipe is dripping and it could cause a mess and someone could slip and much less critical, right? But no water at all, right? How are you washing your hands? How are people doing? They're not, obviously, right? So you should be closed, right? Or you should not be operating with that. So that'd be like a priority, you know, so that's the difference. So getting a priority violation is a big deal that it even happened. So if you have those, yeah, even though you fixed it, yeah, you need to fix it. But that's just having one of those means they need to put a little more better attention to that so they don't get priority violations and then they could be used. Yeah, good question.
So Michael, I have a question. How are you coordinating or managing this to the special event registry? What's the plan for that?
So we actually don't manage the special registry, but what is your question, I guess, about what
Well,
did
how are you, I mean, so we're asking people to fill out all this form for special event registry, and now you're being asked to fill out another form that's related to your event, and in many ways restating things that we're already asking them to do on the special event registry that goes to safety collaborators. So is there a plan to or to have this coordinated in a more streamlined way? So we
Yeah.
are not asking event producers to fill out yet another form.
Well, to get it on it is on the event special registry when someone does on-site food it directs you that you should fill out a temporary food permit.
Okay.
But that's been on there for a long time that you have to do it. There's not another way if you were to fill it out on there and then send that, I don't know, not another way that's set up right now to do it and then be able to track and manage it. So
So that link doesn't lead, I don't, and
It
I haven't
leads-
looked at it recently. Does it lead right to that form then?
it leads to the information that you need to contact food safety and health or Michael Britt, or the temporary food permit. It tells you that that's what you need to do for on-site food, but it doesn't have another direction. So you do need to, even though once you're filling out your registry and you're saying there are food, it'll be a food truck and it'll be these guys. Well, it'll say as soon as you're putting that in, it'll say you need to fill out a temporary food establishment permit. But you still need to fill it out. Is that your kind of question? Yeah, you do have to fill out this other form that we're talking about. Yeah.
And we are taking a look at the special event registry to get it updated. Because right now, I think still today, probably if you jump into it, you'll see some outdated version of an approved vendor list, which is confusing, right? So we are working on updates. I'm less connected to that particular conversation, but I know even as recently as today, there was mention of we've outreached, we're trying to figure out what updates can be made and what timeline we have to make sure that that's updated. Will all nuances be a part of it? I'm not sure about that, but I know we're looking at it and trying to get it updated as best we can.
Sure. So there's a number of people who are not event people who are producing, we'll call them events. It might be meetings or whatever with food. So how is this being communicated out to the larger university population?
So, well, I don't know if there's other ways, but that's where we're doing these trainings and we're doing it published on the website, on my website, and anywhere where people go on other campus websites for planning an event. It's all been changed or getting changed to direct them to the food safety and health website, which if you've already seen it,
Mike,
outlines this stuff.
but when I'm referring to, you have let's say the random faculty member who's doing an event with students and goes through and orders catering, doesn't understand the policy, doesn't understand the procedures. Is there going to be a larger announcement to the university as a whole in order to make sure that people, so at least you can say it went out to the larger university as a whole? Because guaranteed there are people who are out there producing events, buying food, bringing it on campus, having catering done, won't know one thing about this.
I know something that we talked about, because I came from the county, a lot of times you can have like a master list of like all the departments and just shoot a mass thing so everybody got it. This is way bigger than the county even,
Right.
So I don't even think there is a master list to hit all of them, right? I don't know if there is. So
Well, I'm just
we've
asking,
talked about it.
are we going through Kevin Cozio, who's part of that area, to say, sorry, Kevin Cozio, Kevin, what am I thinking of? Kovaleski, I said Cozio because he's an event person, to send something out through ASU Insight, something larger, because we're a lot of people, but we're not everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say, and again, I haven't been in this meeting in particular, but I'm aware of kind of the leadership team that was connected to reviewing, making these updates, and then making the adjustments, are also building out a communication plan. So the nuances of it, I won't speak to because I don't want to misinform, but I do know that there is larger conversation about that overall communication plan. We're kind of based on kind of our jurisdiction and things, event planners were the first go, but there is a different team working on larger communication.
Yeah, but that point hasn't brought up to that upper team.
Okay.
And it's being discussed, but yeah, we can talk even afterwards if you have a good idea of some way to do that, because I posed it out there. How does everybody get this? And they're like, oh, yeah, like, okay, we need to figure that out. But I don't know how you get it out like a mass, like I said, text or email to everybody, you know? But if there's good ways that you guys are aware of, and I bet maybe there is, then please let us know.
Yeah, as long as there's some conversation about it, because we just
Yeah.
know that there's going to be a lot of people that won't know about this.
Yeah.
So in regards to that, is it written as a policy that we can point people to, or if somebody says, well, just go ahead and do it?
Yeah.
And so as event producers, we have to protect ourselves because sometimes we're directed to do things that are maybe not 100% up and up. And so we need some place to point to, like, listen, I would do this for you, but here's the policy, here's it's in the SP manual, whatever it is. So if it's something that's going to be mandated through the university, I think I had asked this before, because it's EOS, you're out of EOS. Is it Jim Rund who's going to make this announcement to the larger world? Is it going to be through, it's not through Morgan's office. So again, like we talked about when we did Eventry as an enterprise-wide, it went through Morgan Olson's office. So I guess who is going to be the head to which we point when we're asked about this?
Yeah, and so I say that's why I think this has been sent out to this group to talk about and see who's going to be getting it out to everybody. So it's in the idea of like an action item, I guess, that we're going to be doing that
Right.
to make sure nobody's missed. But in the meantime, we can control what we can control, which is anywhere where it's known. If I'm to search Planet Event or temporary food permit or something like that, and you search there's ASU to EDU, even if you're on the different campuses, it eventually takes you to these planning and event sites and stuff like that, and capturing all those to direct them all. And if you're looking for like a location where it's published, it's the food safety and health website.
Right. No, but what I'm asking for is what is the university's policy? So if it's not written into policy, how do I defend against somebody saying, well, just go out and do it? Is there a policy now that's going to be written surrounding this, I guess?
So this is looked at as a guideline. The policy is the food code. And the food code, the national food code, is you have to use food from an approved vendor, a permit policy, right? And so these guidelines are how ASU would meet and still be able to hold events according to following that policy, which is the food code. So it's not looked at as a policy, it's looked at as a guideline to be able to meet the national policy of the food code.
And then I know you're not risk management in regards to the certificate of insurance. I mean, risk management's job is to maintain certificates of insurance. And so, you know, if we say, here's the certificate of insurance and we give it to risk management, are we required to continually come back? Because once it's there, it's there. I guess I don't want to have to go back and continually ask for a vendor's certificate of insurance if we know that we've got it. Right?
Yeah, my understanding is and again, not working in risk management right now. However, it would depend on what their deadline or the expiration date, so to speak, for their certificate is. So you don't need to collect it every time, but if you collected it today and it expires at the end of August and you're doing an event with them again, you would want to make sure that you have collected them out.
Perfect. So that would be something I'd ask them to be clarified when you're talking about COIs, because the way it's written right now, it makes it look like as the event producer, we are required to get that COI every single time we utilize that vendor, and that's not sustainable from our end, right?
Right. Not necessary as long the COI would say when it expires. Yeah. And that'd be one of those things I think is on the website.
Yeah.
That they have
Sorry.
business and finance. But
Question.
Yeah. Oh.
So I oversee special events for my school, but I'm also an event resource for all the project managers. How should I encourage them to actually, for type A or type 1, that they don't necessarily, all they need to do is go and get a screenshot, right, and look that up? What is the incentive for them to actually do that process versus them say, I know that Pita Jungle is good. Well, you know Pita Jungle is good right now, but maybe in 2 months it won't be or whatever. is there going to be spot checks? Is there anything like that that's going to happen? Or are we just going to say, fingers crossed that you're doing this job?
So the back and kind of asked question is what would I guess would happen if someone doesn't? Is there a penalty or something like that? There is not. So there's not a penalty. What would happen is to remember the idea of even having this and using only approved vendors is remembering who we work for, and we don't want to ever have ASU end up. There's something called like the headline test, right? And if something were to have a foodborne illness outbreak at an event, and even if it was my little, we went to I don't know, a luncheon for planning something, or somebody retired or whatever, it's not going to say all that stuff. It's going to say ASU outbreak. That's what's going to happen, right? So the whole point you even have a food safety, a health inspector, and a program to manage food is so that you don't have those. So that's really the reason behind it. So what could happen is the worst case would be a foodborne illness outbreak, and the worst of that, somebody died even. Okay, but even less than that, people injured in some way where now it damages their liver or kidneys, and now the rest of their life they have uremic syndrome, hemolytic uremic syndrome, where now they have to be on dialysis and things. All this stuff actually happens, right? So to avoid that, don't have outbreaks and not have that happen is to only use from approved vendors that are permitted and have a good recent history at least. And the only way if you were to tighten it up to not even allow that would be allow no outside vendors, just the contracted food provider. Nobody wants that. And so it's really it's a way of like not going to like micromanage and overstep when it's unnecessary, but have things in place and teach people that they should do it correctly, and explain this is a good question. Explain, well, what happened? And I'm explaining what happened. There's something called a foodborne illness outbreak, or FBI investigation. They call it foodborne illness investigation or environmental related illness investigation. And we'll be asking, well, what was the event? When was it? How was it approved? When was it approved? And then then get into also the food. But those would be questions we'd be asking about that if it ever did head into this horrible scenario, right? So that's the idea behind it. But as far as forcing someone to do it, there's no other way. We're putting the onus on having guidelines. That's what we should do, and people should do it. And if they don't, and it turns into something real bad, then I guess it will come out, I guess. Oh.
I actually just saw they asked the same question in the chat. How are student organizations affected by this? I know specifically a lot of ours, we do encourage them to shop locally, small businesses. So how are they affected by this in the end?
So it depends on if for their food for their event, if what type of food class it'll be, ordered ready to eat, or having somebody there on site from a small business or whoever they want, right? That's the effect. The effect is the same. So just depends on how they're going to set up their event. They could still use, that's again, the benefit of this. Any outside vendor that has a permit as required with the food, right? You have to have a permit and a good recent routine inspection history. So small business, if someone decides because you want to like promote and help and throw that support for small business, especially if that's the topic or the subject or the whatever the focus of someone's event or whatever, do it. That's fine. There's nobody you can't. There's nobody saying you can't, right? So they'd all be open. The only reason saying you can't is that they don't have a permit and they don't have a good recent routine inspection history. So yeah, so it only affects them in the sense that the same way it always has. They should always use permitted places or get a temporary permit if it's on site. That's the same.
Okay, so my question was back to Melissa Werner's with the COI, and maybe this is where we would need to like get clarification from risk management, is that I know that sometimes there were issues where, yeah, they have the COI, but we're also asking for the endorsement. And sometimes places will only do that for a set days that you're set to be there. So you may actually need to get it if there's an actual vendor coming to campus to physically be here, because it may not have that endorsement on it. But that I don't know, like, are we requiring an endorsement for each of these, or is it just that they have a COI that covers them?
I definitely know that'd be a good question. Again, we don't work in risk management, but they told us, and we had them at the last training. They were on there and answering some of these questions. But they have an email that ask them these kind of questions. You know, that'd be good to know some of these specifics. But that makes sense. I think exactly what you're saying is Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. I do know within the MECA Slack channel, we did post some FAQ documents, well, a document with FAQs. And I believe, I don't remember the exact response to it, but there were questions about the COI within that document. And then we are leaning on language that's on that COI website that we linked to that is under that risk management umbrella. There's no kind of supplemental practice around that. We're leaning to their guidance that already exists for campus around any sort of vendor or contract that has risk associated collecting that COI. So we'll also lean to that, but we can, if it's not directly answered, we can make sure that gets added to that FAQ as well.
Yeah, so everyone here's MECA, I guess, because you're registered. But so if you got the Slack that I think Marissa sent it out or whatever, right? Or maybe Yakima did. Anyways, you ought to be able to have that FAQ. And if there's other ones that come up and that would benefit, it's not just a one-off, gray area for that person, but we'll add more if we need to the FAQ. And the intention eventually is to have that published and posted probably on the Food Safety and Health website as well. FAQ about this, right? As of right now, you just have the description of what we just described, type 1, type 2, and why and how, and then the forms, but probably that'll be on there eventually too. And Marissa, I don't know if someone else or if we have more time or questions online. I don't know. Whatever.
Any more questions? Anybody in the room, on chat?
Well, we can maybe, without going back to the slideshow, we can maybe shout out some of the common questions that we get. We have time, a little bit of time. So I'll kind of pose some questions and then we can provide some response. So we've gotten to which departments and organizations does this apply to? Any and all connected to ASU.
They don't have it. There we go.
Yeah, I was just going to read it out. We can post it. That's okay. Go ahead. You can skip to the next. Perfect. Okay, so I'll be purchasing prepackaged items such as individual bags of chips, granola bars, cans of soda from a grocery store. Do I need to complete a food exception form? I'll take that one, Michael.
So you can just hit the answer. A lot of those we have answered, but it's good that we can read at the same time. So we're thinking this is a pretty common one that we've gotten, so we want to put it on there as an answer that you have. I think it's an FAQ even. So now, and this was in the earlier versions of our training, it was yes, all food exception requests for everything, right? But now we've changed this. So if you're from the earlier one, you're not, it's not strange, but no, not a food exception request, only for contract exclusive places. You guys can read that. When ordered prepackaged, shelf stable items, use large chain grocery store outlets. We can't for reasons of not discriminating against someone who we didn't list, can't list them all, but the types we would say would be like Walmart and Costco and Sam's Club and Target even, and Safeway, Fry's, all that stuff. But anyways, yeah. No FER necessary. Yeah, good point. So you still follow the type 1 protocol, which is you don't need an FER if it's not an exclusive space, but you should still look them up. Make sure they have a permit and a good recent routine inspection history to save that. It's basically like to her question that she had, it's basically a CYA, right? If something were to happen, that's basically what it is. And you'll see how quickly we kind of did it talking about it. It's very quick. Yeah, go ahead. Question. Or maybe a mic over there. I don't know if we need it.
Michael, you helped me out with some questions. I emailed you really recently, just a couple weeks ago. So could you tell me how recently that changed?
You mean to not use FERs till now?
Yes.
Just since the last train till now, like this week.
Okay, because we're in an academic unit, we're in a school. And so if our business team has a small meeting and gets breakfast burritos for their internal meeting, now they don't need to do an FER ahead of time.
Correct. That's correct.
Thank you
You
very
don't need to
much.
do a food
Thank you.
exception request ahead of time. The space is not exclusive or contracted, right? You do not need a FER, but you do need to still do, which like we were saying, look it up on Maricopa restaurant ratings, make sure the recent inspection, take a screenshot, CYA, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, do that. And you could do that at impromptu meetings. That was another people who asked us, but the manager, the director wanted this and we had to stay late and And you're like, well, I'm not 14 days ahead for your FER rules. And we're like, yeah, that's correct. So how can we also get around this? Well, then you don't need it. It's not contract exclusive space. you don't need the FER. You just need to do this part. Make sure you're still using a reputable place. Yeah.
So if there is like the building, right, Fulton, they have a coffee service, they have people that come in. Are they contracted with the university? So you already know that they have a good standing? Or is it the building's manager, whoever is doing it, is it their responsibility to make sure that that coffee service, that snack service that is brought in for certain floors is licensed? You
Good
know what I
question.
mean?
Is that building or that program over that building service? They should be doing just what we said, ordering from a company that has a permit.
Then provost office
I
get.
know where you're talking about,
Yeah.
but they're not permit with me because I know that means that they must order out from another company, like you're saying. Yeah. So they don't need to do this.
Okay.
They have a contracted company that
Okay.
they use. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a good question because related, I got stuff people asking me about Sparklet's water. Water service at my building. Do I have to submit an FER for that? I'm like, no. You don't have to do that for getting bottled waters for our water coolers. In fact, that's a different division to not get into craziness, but bottled water and all that stuff is actually under ADQ and da. Anyways, but no, you do not. Okay. You could just use Sparklet's water. They're licensed and permitted and all that stuff. This is not what this is about. Other scenario.
Yeah, for sure. We can jump to the next one just quickly, and I'll expand this out if it's, because again, food exception request probably isn't the best example. So if I've submitted the kind of type 2 request and event date has changed or food vendor has changed, what is the response? So I'll let you take that one, Michael.
Yeah, so we already mentioned before, like about 30 days, is what we're saying. Try and keep things approvals that you do for about 30 days. But so if it changes and it's less than 30 days, again, this is where you get in the gray area. Make a good professional decision. Got to say something, right? Okay, so that's basically what it is. Knowing that things could be according to the way the county and the code operates. Someone could be inspected, but not unless there was a major issue or a customer complaint or something. Not less than 30 days from their last routine inspection. So I know that just because I'm in the business. So that's why saying about a month, if it's changed but less than a month, it likely wasn't even inspected again since the last they were approved. But if it's more than a month, then yeah, look it up again, save a new screenshot of checking them again. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll jump to the next one as well. So if you're planning an event and you want to utilize multiple food vendors at the event, do you need to submit a unique form for each vendor? So again, if you are using ready-to-eat vendors in non-contract exclusive locations, you don't need to submit any form. You just need to do that verification to make sure they're eligible to be used. If ready to eat and you are seeking an exception in a contracted space, on that form, there's a way to essentially list multiple vendors. So if that's something you're seeking, again, we view those as pretty rare, but you could list multiple vendors there. And then for type 2, that on-site preparation approval, you would need to submit that separate permit per vendor that you are planning to utilize because they are different entities, even if you're using them at the same location.
Yeah, that's a pretty common question. So I put it on there.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, people are like, can I put them all on one FER? Yes. It's just a field. Just list. We're gonna get we're gonna buy snacks and sodas from Walmart, and then we're gonna get actual food from Jersey Mike's, and then put them all on there and just put them and the address. That's what's required. All those multiples can go on an FER, but yeah, each on-site vendor with the $85 fee, the temporary food permit, each have their own submitted approval, submitted fillable PDF.
I think we're going to jump ahead like
Yeah.
7. We're going to go to, if a vendor is donating food for my event, do I need to complete this process? Yes. You should still verify that the vendor you might be receiving food from is eligible. Again, the goal is safety and avoiding risk as much as possible, or sort of disseminating risk as much as possible. So you would still want to verify that they are able to be utilized regardless of location. And then again, if your event is in that contract exclusive space, you still need to submit the food exception form. Donated or sponsored food does not kind of remove the need to make sure that that food is eligible to be served within those contract exclusive locations.
Think about the
Again,
food
pretty
didn't come from
specific.
Aramark.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's not
Or-
Airmark
or
food
Sodexo
or
Athletics,
Sodexo at
yeah.
Athletics, like where we are right now, or University Club Athletics, if they didn't make the food, they have to, they're allowed the exception that it has to come from them. So if they don't, but they want to allow it, they'd have to allow it, and that's what the food exception request is for exclusive places. Yeah.
Yep.
We
And we'll
can
move to the
donate food.
next one. And Michael, I'll have you take this one.
Yeah, my team hosts a potluck at the end of the semester. People are encouraged to bring a dish to share. Answer. It's kind of long. So do I need to complete this process? Okay. If the event is occurring in your internal team and not open to the public, those are all precise words, right? So ASU family, which means everyone at your event is either an ASU student or faculty or employee or whatever, but you work for ASU or attend ASU, you're ASU. What that means then, not the spouse of the ASU employee and the friends of the ASU employee and the boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever, right? So that would be open to the public, okay? So in other words, if the event is occurring in your internal team, not open to the public, you're not required to complete an approval form. But once you have a public event, then yeah, you should. You should submit a form. And actually, doing potlucks where you're cooking out of your house, this is like a easy #1 no-no in the food code. You're not allowed to do public events ever cooking in your private residence because that's where we live, that's where we're sick, that's where our animals are, that's where whatever is, right? And you that could get into the food and then get into the people of the event and all that stuff. So it says that a home residence is not an approved source for open TCS food, they call it, but potentially hazardous food that requires refrigeration. Anyways, so yeah, baked goods, there's exceptions and things like that, but this is talking about like a potluck. Makes me think of like chili cook-off and things like that. Those are open foods that require temperature control. Yeah. So we still always recommend looking at the risks, and that's the point behind everything. That you're always leaning on protecting our ASU family, right? And everybody, but yeah.
I'll move forward. I think just the last one. I think we've covered this one. It's pretty clear. Approved vendor list. Can I utilize one of the vendors listed? No. Well, you can't. You can use them potentially. You can't use them without doing the vetting process to make sure that they are still eligible. That approved vendor list is not on any website that sort of manages this food guideline process at this point. What we do know and understand is that over the course of years, the approved vendor list was taken in sort of a static format that can't be edited by the team and people who oversee it, right? So you might find it in different places. We're doing our best to try and make sure that that gets pulled. If you find one, feel free to reach out to whoever hosts that site, or you can let us know and we can just reach out. We just want to remove confusion as much as possible. And so if you find one, you can let us know, but you still want to double check and make sure those vendors are eligible. Again, the approved vendor list going away doesn't mean they aren't great vendors. We're just making sure that we're doing a proper
They all
checks.
probably are great vendors.
They probably are. They're great.
You just don't use that list to say, oh, they're on the list. Good. I found a list. I searched it. I found a list. Just like you might search temporary food permit and find the old version that says it's $70 and it goes to Veronica Oros, my predecessor, and the health services. I'm not there anymore. You'll still find it. I've submitted, I don't know how many times to get it off there, but the website tech people tell me you can't. It's saved in this rogue way to a date and a time, and it's not on an actual website, and you can't remove it. So you might have stuff that shows up in search results, and sorry for all of us, right? We've submitted, but just that's why we're trying to funnel everything through a known site. Just go to the Food Safety and Health website. That should always be the most current one.
Agreed. We're trying. If you move to the next slide, this is just our ending slide. A couple of QR codes or a few. So one is email us. This actually links to a general food exceptions at ASU email inbox that's being monitored by a few different people. If questions come in, you can also obviously email Michael directly. And then connection to 2 websites. The Food Safety and Health at this point has the bulk of the information. And then the Catering, Food and Policies website exists here as well, but it's going to route you back to the Food Safety and Health website at this point. But those are there if you would like it as well. And then
you got those rogue links out there that I'm telling you we don't like, but whatever.
That's right.
We're telling you how they should be found.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we're like right at time, but we can stick around for a couple minutes if anyone has other questions as well.
I know. I
That's
know.
right, like Google Live.
I look at it. Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why. Careful. Internet safety. What you
That's
post
right.
is there forever, maybe. Example.
But we
But
appreciate
Marissa.
it. We know there's a lot of updates and change. And even again, if you were with us session 1 for MECA versus now, feedback has been received, heard, assessed, and changes have happened. So we're not trying to make it more confusing, but we are trying to make sure that the people who are kind of at that decision making level are hearing the feedback and making sure that we're accounting for what we're able to. So we appreciate it and appreciate you being on the journey with us as we make sure that we get this sorted out.
And it's never over, right? It's not over till it's over, and that's never, right? So that's okay. We'll update as much as we need to streamline and can. We want to. So thanks for all your help already so far. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you to all of our presenters today. Let's give them a round of applause. And we're going to move on to the next slide. We're going to talk about upcoming MECA events. So the goal right now of MECA is to host at least one monthly meeting reasonably. I say reasonably because I don't think December is a smart month because we're a little busy. So upcoming MECA event, the next MECA event is going to be, next slide, September 27th. Funny enough, we're going to have risk management present on COI, so certificates of insurance, because clearly it's a hot topic. And we're also going to have them present about the updated changes to the alcohol permits. So I've heard there's a meeting. I haven't been to one yet, but we're going to have them come and present all that good information that we need to know. So put it on your calendar. There will be a STOVA registration link being sent out soon. So Wednesday, September 27th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And I also wanted to add the next couple of slides because I always get asked these questions and I see them pop up on the MECA Slack a couple of times during the semester. But upcoming university events, important dates. Family weekend, September 23rd. Homecoming, October 28th, and graduation week is December 11th. Just so everybody's on the same page of the big events that are going on at campus. Which one? Oh, the picture of the slide. Okay. So other than that, we have finished just a little bit early. So there are a couple of different options that we have going on right now. So if you would like a tour of the stadium locations, I know pictures are worth 1,000 words, but it's even better to see the locations. Our team at 365 is willing to show you around, even go upstairs to see the other space that they were talking about. That's just a tiny bit different than this one. Otherwise, we are sticking around and then we'll see you over at the Omni. They said that they will welcome us early at 4 p.m. actually. So again, if you didn't RSVP, that's okay. Just come out and hang out with us.
But tell them what they're going to offer us. And there's more.
Oh, and there's more. For those who attend today, you actually get 2 drink tickets and they're giving us appetizers at the event. So if you would like to hang out before you head home, let's go to Omni.
And I can only drink so much. So if you don't show up.
And with that, thank you guys. Thank you everybody on Zoom.
Yeah, thanks
and
guys.
We'll see you soon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bite my tongue, it's a bad habit. Kinda mad that I didn't take a stab at it. Thought you were too good for me, my dear. Never gave the time of day, my dear. It's okay, things happen for reasons that for sure, yeah. Wish I knew you wanted me. bite your tongue like my bad habit. Would you mind if I tried to make a pass at it? No, you're not me, my dear. From you back to me, my dear. It's okay, things happen for reasons that I can't ignore. Yeah. Wish I knew you wanted me. Wish I knew you. It's alright tonight. I'm everywhere.
Stadium tour. If you're interested, come meet over here. We're gonna head up to Lagunitas here shortly if you'd like to join us.
You always knew
Tour.
the way to wow me. Fuck around, get tongue tied. I turn it on, I make it rowdy. Then carry on, but I'm not hiding. You grab